OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
It's 7:30. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. We're here with you all the way until 9:30 this morning. A very busy show lined up for you. We're going to talk about the big news in mostly coming from hurling at the moment. Micheál Donoghue stepped down last night as the manager of the Galway hurlers. Richie Hogan spoke to Joe for about half an hour and talked about how he felt in the aftermath of his sending off in the Ireland final, just the difficulties that he goes through for every single training session to get himself back out on the field of play. Plenty to sink our teeth into. Cyril Farrell's going to join us after 8 o'clock. Tommy's here this morning. Tommy, how are you?
Morning, Ger. How are you? Very well.
Bit of a bombshell. We'll get to Richie Hogan in a minute. A bit of a bombshell that Micheál Donaghy stepping away from Galway.
Yeah, I think there was rumours maybe around, I think John Fogarty maybe tweeted around 9 o'clock that there might be big news coming out of a county this evening. And when I clicked on the tweet, there was responses underneath and there was a couple of different counties in the mix. So I wasn't expecting Donoghue to step aside, to be honest. We had him at our one of our shows down in Galway a couple of weeks ago. He was on with Andy Friend, and I didn't really get the impression that he was planning to step aside. But he's put in 4 years. He's won an All-Ireland title. You know,
it's a good record.
It's a good record. You know, club hurling and club football takes a lot of your life, never mind inter-county hurling. So, you know, whatever his reasons were, he released a statement to Galway Bay last night. It's hard to question him on it.
Yeah, it will be, so long as it's like at his, you know, he's happy going, he's had enough. It's not an issue with anybody behind the scenes or anything. So long as it's straightforward, look, it's very early, it's August, so it's not like he waited until the last minute. I think all that will come out if there was anything going on. Like we saw it in Galway a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if it's the case here again. Anthony Cunningham obviously was. I'm not sure Anthony was ready to leave when he left. So it remains to be seen whether that's the case here again. I'm not sure it was. Yeah, I know. No sense of anything like that happening at the minute. The other big thing that happened last night was Richie Hogan spoke.
Yeah.
In the aftermath of his red card. We have a clip. We have a clip of Richie Hogan, which I'll play you now. And while we do that, I'll clear my throat. Have a look.
I watched it back there this morning. Obviously, I stayed away from it earlier on, but I mean, I was going in for a shoulder on Cathal Barrett, and he sidestepped inside, and my momentum kind of took me through. In my opinion, there's absolutely no way it was a sending off. But I suppose that's the way these things go. I mean. Sometimes those decisions go for you and sometimes they go against, and it was one of those things for me.
Yeah, he's pretty raw, he's pretty philosophical about the whole thing. Philosophical about the aftermath of it, but definitely did not think that it was a red card. I don't agree with him. I think that it was a red card. I think that the Cathal Barrett challenge definitely deserves something. The difficulty here is that it's not about intent, it's about outcome. The referees on outcome, not intent. You might not mean to lift your shoulder / then it becomes an elbow because they're connected, and you don't mean to do that. It happens because of the movement of everybody.
But it happens because in the throes of battle as well. Like, I fully believe that Richie Hogan feels like it wasn't a red card. Like, there's no doubt that Richie didn't mean to do Cathal Barrett. You know, it's such a fast game.
He really meant to kill him with the shoulder.
Nail him.
Yeah.
But God, it's an All-Ireland hurling final, you got it.
And you're supposed to do that.
You got it, and like Cathal Barrett had been leaving it on a number of Kilkenny players. And Cathal Barrett is that kind of defender. So if you have a chance to put Cathal Barrett over the line, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's just that I think maybe Richie's frustrations come from the fact that hurling is a game of blood and thunder, and it's all about flaking and flying. And now, you know, games change, and that has been. That element of hurling has probably reduced a good bit over the last number of years. But Richie Hogan got nailed in the All-Ireland semi-final. Richie Hogan got nailed 15 minutes beforehand in the All-Ireland final. And there's probably an element of where's the consistency here.
The Cork game as well.
It was great that he spoke last night. That was a 30-minute interview, and I know there's the chat about the red card, but there's also really good stuff about the fact that he had quite a tough year this year with injuries. He had quite a tough year working his way back into Cody's setup. Like, the fact that he did his medial ligaments against Limerick and he didn't train at all since, and he's still lining out in an All-Ireland final. It's just testament to how unbelievable a player he is. Like, I think, I was warming up yesterday for training, listening to that interview last night. I'd say everybody had it on last night. I had my earphones in. The lads were asking, what are you doing?
You were doing your two-hour warm-up, just like Richie Hogan.
Yeah.
John Duggan, good morning to you.
How are you, Ger and Tommy? Morning.
John.
You did a 2-hour warm-up as well?
No, I was sleeping.
John does a warm-up every morning at 4 a.m. for this shift.
So I heard the interview. The first thing I did this morning is listen to the compelling stuff. Offtheball.com, straight the main story exclusive there this morning. You can also get on the Go Loud app. And he's just, look, Richie's probably, it hasn't sunk in for him is what I felt when listening to it. Hasn't sunk in that he got sent off in a hurling final. and he just came out and defended himself. And there's obviously huge integrity there about that it wasn't intentional from his perspective, that he believes Tipperary shouldn't have any glory taken away from them. He doesn't want to ever speak about it again.
Yeah, that's all fair enough.
But there is a little bit of, I've kind of felt that it hasn't sunk in for him. And the reason why I feel that is because he's saying that he's amazed and he's astounded and it wasn't an elbow. But from what I saw, the pictures-wise, didn't exactly correlate with that in the lightning quick nature of the collision.
Yeah, I think though, John, that sometimes in those tackles that can happen. Like the nature of what he was doing, he was going to hit a lot of shoulder at 60 miles an hour.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. And that was the intention. But it still was a case that the elbow struck the face guard, wasn't it?
Well, it was higher up in the air. It wasn't necessarily the elbow to hit it. But listen, we're talking about degrees here. We're talking
I know, that's
about,
the thing.
And inches.
And the issue really is that he made the point that, the fourth camera angle is the one that you're nailing me on here, but come on, lads. And because when I was at the game, couldn't see what happened, didn't know what happened, was looking for a GIF, and then somebody sent me the RTE GIF, and in real time it looks like nothing. It does look like a dive, right? It looks like a complete, my legs have come back out. And then, you see Galbart the next day and there's still blood on his mouth because of it. And, it clearly wasn't a dive, and then you see what happens. But I think that I have a lot of sympathy for Richie Hogan, and I have a lot of respect for Richie Hogan for everything he's ever done, but also for coming out and facing and saying, look, this is what happened, and this is my experience of what happened. And I don't think he's ever going to change that experience. I don't think that he's going to watch it again and go, oh yeah, you're right, I did actually lift my elbow. And he'll forever feel he's justly treated.
He's an amateur player. It's the biggest day. Even if he's had big days before, it's still the biggest day of his year. And it's a hurling final. Of course you're going to be, there's a grief process going on for him.
Yeah, I think Joe said people aren't going to remember this as the final that Richie Hogan got sent off. They're going to remember for Tipperary's performance. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think that actually everybody's always going to remember this is the game that hinged on Richie Hogan getting sent off, and we'll never know what it would have been like to see this Kilkenny team. The last throw of that Kilkenny team with TJ and Richie and Paul Murphy, what could they have done over 75 minutes?
I think you're right about the final, but I don't think Richie Hogan's career will be defined by this.
Not his career, no. He's a hurler of the year. He's one of the great hurlers of... he's potentially in Kilkenny's greatest team of all time, and he's potentially...
Absolutely.
There's stiff competition.
Yeah, he's thereabouts.
He absolutely is.
But I felt actually, I know you're saying sympathy for Richie Hogan last night. I didn't expect anything else from him when he came out and he defended himself, because I've been in moments in games before where afterwards you're being told something happened, you're like, that's not how I saw it. That's not how I intended when I did it.
Yeah.
There's split seconds, a moment, and he said it himself. Look at the reaction online. There's interpretation of these things. I know people can be blinded and they can just see their own county colours, but with that, he just caught him wrong. It was a red card.
This is a good debate, though. This is a debate about your view or your kind of perspective on it. It's not a debate. There's no outrage in this debate, which I think is a good thing. It is just a debate of lots of kind of strands, replays, the nature of hurling, and as you said, the blood and thunder nature of it, the video technology aspect of it. It is a highbrow debate, as I would say, about a big issue. It's not an outrage. It's not you're a disgrace, you're this, you're that. It's actually an interesting debate to kind of shape how we view the game going forward, like video technology, all that kind of thing, and where the edge is in hurling.
Referee consistency, I would say, is the thing. So James O'Connor made a great point on the show on Monday night. He was talking about the red card, and he was saying that he felt that there was an incident in semi-final. Killian Buckley caught Will Donoghue with a high elbow, and Alan Kelly issued him with a yellow, right? And James was like, no doubt, all the referees were communicated with afterwards. Lads, an elbow to the head, it's a red card. Your job is to issue a red card. And I've no doubt that, I don't know which of the linesmen it was, but they're all highly qualified referees as well, who obviously are getting the same diktat from the head of the referees, who is like, elbow to the head, we were all in the meeting, James, that's a red.
Do you know that meeting, right? And do you know how that's been communicated to the referees? Brilliant, no problem. But I'm wondering, is that being communicated to the players?
Maybe.
Because Richie Hogan was surprised he was getting a yellow card.
Maybe, yeah.
Richie Hogan's face when James Owens is talking to him and he's saying, look, taking his time, he's chatting to him, and Richie's like, come on now, I caught him late, but it's not a yellow card, I didn't try and do him. Next thing he pulls out the red card, and Richie's shocked. So, like, I'm not sure is that being communicated to the players. There's a lot of ambiguity about this high tackle rule. There's a lot of ambiguity about how you can actually tackle in hurling full stop. Like, we've seen in rugby how they've had to change their game completely. Like, the manner in which they tackle, the manner in which they coach the tackle, the manner in which they attempt to tackle. Like,
do we need to have a Kalina-style referees briefing before finals?
That's made public.
Yeah, that we have a press conference, say, next Wednesday for the football final with David Goff.
Are you sure you want to go there?
No, but it doesn't matter who the referee is, and say, look, these are the things we are now going to concentrate on more than we would have for the 2019 paradigm of a final.
I don't think you need a press conference. I think you need to just issue these are the following incidents, and like the issue is that you're giving out to the referees, right? So it's criticism, it's internal referee criticism.
Yeah,
this was a yellow card; it should have been a red. Alan Kelly has been prevented from refereeing a big game, like, because that shouldn't happen either, right?
We also know that the referees aren't allowed to come out and speak after a decision. They're not allowed to come out and say, this happened or this happened. Like, sometimes that might maybe cut away a lot of the debate as well.
Yeah, I missed that.
I missed it. Like, David Goff did it back in 2017, 6 months after the Kerry incident. He put his hands up and he said, I missed it, and it's a human error.
Yeah.
But, like, I actually think James Owen got it nailed on, and he used his officials to get it right as well.
Shane Dowling said Alan Kelly did exactly the same thing to him in a private capacity, and I'm sure Alan Kelly was delighted that Shane Dowling went on off the ball and told everybody about it.
Where did they meet? The Galway races, was that it? Yeah.
You meet funny people at the Galway races.
Oh, you do, definitely do. But one of the major problems is with hurling and refereeing in GA is interpretation. Like, every championship game you have at home, it's like, who's the referee? And you're trying to find out how he deals with a game.
Would it not be the same in soccer, though?
But is there not
professional soccer?
There's not less interpretation in soccer. You know what a foul is. You know what offside is. You know what this is. Like, there's so much so much ambiguity around tackling and hurling, especially.
I mean, I think that the point you're making at rugby is very interesting, right? Because rugby, you used to get up after concussion, come back on, and everybody go, yeah, come on, you're class. And there's still that machismo within the GA world where you now should be told that if your shoulder is wrong and it's straight to the front, or it touches any part of the head, it's a red card. And suddenly you don't see as much shouldering anymore, but the skills of the game improve. And you've got to balance that trade-off between long-term player health. Like, you can't have shoulders to the head.
No.
You can't have elbows or shoulders to the head in any game. You can't have it in club matches this weekend. They have to be straight reds all day long, irrespective of what the intention was.
Yeah.
For player safety. Like, we're talking...
You can get a concussion from a shoulder. Like, in the GA, you can, from a collision like that.
You can, right? But very rarely, right? You're far more likely to get a concussion from a shoulder to the head.
If the shoulder's timed well and you nail a fella when he's moving.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, so I can remember one that I can think of in a club game in Dublin that, like, I can't remember any more other than that.
I saw one on Saturday. You could hear it from the other side of the pitch.
The concussion.
Definitely, it was a concussion. 100%.
Well, okay, I'm glad Dr. Tommy was there with his little medical case and his MRI scan. But anyway, you know the point I'm making,
yes, I do,
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's fair enough. Everybody goes in knowing that's a potential outcome. But nobody's going in thinking, I need to protect my head here because I have an unprotected head and I'm going to get an elbow. And that's about, like, changing behaviours and making sure that players feel safe, and that's about us all wanting everybody to play these sports because they're great sports. And ultimately, you've got to weigh the pain and difficulties that Richie Hogan and Kilkenny are having at the minute versus the well-being of the rest of the sport. And that's the balance, and that's why it's a red card all day long. And you can't not have it be a red card.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a process as well. The GA is improving in that regard. Like, you only have to look at the fact that players know that the only way they can get a game stopped is if they let on it as a head injury. And you're starting to see that seep in a little bit to the GA as well.
The cheating.
Hold your head. Like, you're starting to see that. So, players are aware that if they want the game stopped or they want to stop a bit of momentum, they've got to hold their head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not great.
Well,
that's the worst aspects of soccer coming into the game.
I'm just saying that they're getting more limited around concussion.
You meet the strangest people. You meet some of the best people at the Galway races. We met Micheál Donoghue at the Galway races. He came in, he sat with us for the best part of an hour with Andy Friend, the Connacht coach, and at that stage I had no indication. There was no sense. He was very relaxed. That was the only thing. For an inter-county manager, he seemed like quite happy to chat about stuff.
Relaxed.
He's always relaxed.
Yeah, always relaxed. Micheál did very well in Galway. First of all, it's very hard to win a club All-Ireland, and we did that with Clarenbridge. They had an amazing battle with De La Salle, I think, on route in 2011 to winning that club All-Ireland. And Galway is a county which has had such minor and aged under 21 or under 20 now success, that there's always been that huge expectation. There's a very strong club game in Galway. A lot of rivalries in the club scene there, and sometimes it's almost like Derry football has become, it's battled with the inter-county for supremacy. And he managed to knit everything together. He was with Tipperary for a while, and then came in with Galway, lost by a point in 2016 to Tipperary in the semi-final. Tipperary would go on to win the All-Ireland. Roles were reversed the following year, and then they won the All-Ireland deservedly against Waterford by 6 points. 1988, of course, that very poignant story with his dad driving the team bus in the 80s, and then he met him then after the final in 2017 in Ballinasloe, and then a year later they didn't perform against Limerick in the final, but they nearly pulled it out of the fire. And just this year Joe got injured. The round robin is strange. You can kind of get knocked out of that round robin quite easily in ways sometimes.
Yeah, Tipperary went from last to first.
Yeah, and Limerick were third last year. So I think he did a great job. I think he's left a good legacy there, and hopefully whoever takes over, and it probably will be internal, will do as good a job.
Yeah, we're going to talk with Cyril Farrell in about 15 minutes about that, and in just a minute we're going to bring you the newspapers. Here's what's coming up in the show, sports pages. Cyril Farrell, shot clock with Kieran Donaghy around about 25 minutes past 8. After that, we've got South African rugby, obviously riding high at the minute, European football and sports news, and then Phil's football around about 20 past 9. You can tweet us with the hashtag OTBAM. We're obviously hurling obsessed for the next while of the show, and we're going to be bringing the papers right after this.
The Off the Ball Open tees off in Abu Dhabi this November 17th to 23rd. Join us with return flights from Dublin, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, golf on 2 championship courses, gala awards dinner, Peter Lorre golf clinic, and a live Off the Ball roadshow, all for just €1,750. Kevin Kilban, Kieran Donaghy and Connor Sketches will be there too. The Off the Ball Open, Abu Dhabi, this November. Limited number of early bird places remain, so book now at CassidyTravel.ie. Deposit of €250 required. Terms and conditions apply.
Yeah, that should be great. Get on to Cassidy Travel today if you want to book one of the last few remaining early bird places on that. Going to start, not going to start with the Guardian, screw that. Going to start with the Examiner. Facing uncertainty, Carty and Byrne could pip Carberry to World Cup spot, and Sheedy must be a bit like Garth Brooks thanking God for unanswered prayers, says Kieran Shannon over his piece today. What have you got first up?
Yeah, we have the Irish Indo. Referee got it wrong with sending off, insists Richie Hogan. Schmidt said to give Byrne a World Cup opportunity. So we've got that Irish rugby team being named this afternoon in Portugal for the England game against Twickenham on Saturday. So Ross Byrne set to be number 10. Villasac, ex-Ireland assistant, Kevin MacDonald, with immediate effect over allegations of bullying from some of the club's former players in the 1990s. Younger players like the Gareth Farrelly, member, was very critical of him. Back page of the Mirror. End disgusting racism. Maguire urges social media giants to crack down on sick trolls after Pogba's latest victim of vile abuse. Jack and Ross said to get a chance to impress. The story about the rugby, and amazed Hogan on his red. No way it was a sending off, of course, on Off the Ball last night. Hogan stand, the best headline I've seen about it, Ger. No way it was a red card. Talk of an elbow was crazy. This is not Irish dancing, and I can't retire on that note.
Yeah, plenty for people to sink their teeth into from our Richie Hogan interview on Off the Ball last night. Richie's rage, I don't think he was raging either. Hogan hits out at red. It's not Irish dancing is the headline on the back of the Mail this morning. And they say they have an exclusive United Sikh Twitter talks following racial abuse of Pogba. And there is Carty gets the edge on Byrne. So they're saying Jack Carty and Ross Byrne sitting back to back yesterday. But is it not Ross Byrne who's going to start?
Well, Rory O'Connor is saying that Byrne will get it.
Ireland women's captain slams dinosaur duo. Ireland captain Kate McCabe has hit out football legends Graham Souness and Glenn Hoddle as dinosaurs for their outdated attitude towards the women's game. What else?
No prisoners taken as final decisions in A versus B games made. This is about the Dubs in 2017. The B team beating the A team by a point just before the All-Ireland final. So this is what's going on right now in Dublin senior football ahead of the Kerry game on Sunday week.
So that's the 2017 final?
The Mayo game, when they won by a point, Dean Rock slaved free.
Is that, that's when Connolly comes on?
Yes.
So is that why Connolly didn't start? Is that why Eoin O'Gara started? Did he play really well in that game?
The B forward division, I haven't read it now fully, but it looks something like this. Niall Scully, Dermot Connolly, who did come on, Paul Flynn, Cormac Costello, Bernard Brogan, Kevin McManaman. So that's quite a good story from Conor McKeown in the back of the Irish Herald today. I paraphrased the quotes from the skills coach Richie Murphy at the Examiner this morning. I'm a bit more worried about Joey Carberry than I would have been a day or two ago, given the quotes I saw out of Portugal yesterday about his fitness, and I would get the sense that they're worried about it, that with whether he's going to go on that plane or not, and that's why Byrne and Carty are going to be tried out now between now and the Wales game in Dublin on September 7th. But it wasn't concrete that he's going to be on the plane for me.
It's hard to justify him being on the plane unless you're absolutely certain he's going to be back after the first game. Now, that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is that, as we were saying with Ronan O'Gara the other day, the teams that end up doing well in the semi-finals and finals, who go deep into the tournament, don't have their first team. They have players who have come into the squad late sometimes to kick the winning drop goal, or they have players who were absolutely substitutes when the thing started, but because of injury and because of loss of form. So do you carry somebody along who you know can get back to health and ultimately you will be able to use
in a quarterfinal
or
onwards,
or even like the last game before the quarterfinal? So if he's just back for the last game before the quarterfinals and you're hoping you're going to make the quarterfinals irrespective of who you're playing, obviously we know which two teams are potentially we're playing and they're both great, and can you win that game without Joey Carberry?
Or without 20 minutes of Joey Carberry?
Yeah, and I'm not sure. So
I think he needs to be on the plane personally.
It seems like it's a risk, but unless the injury is more severe than we've been told, which has happened in many instances before when it comes to professional sport. Get real, Hogan, hurling isn't Irish dancing. Everybody seems to agree on that being the first takeaway. This is the Sun's take on Off the Ball story at Richie Hogan interview with him last night. Penalty kicked. Ollie loses the rag. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer tore into Paul Pogba and Marcus Rashford over the Molyneux penalty farce. So, obviously...
Why didn't he say... Why didn't he designate a penalty taker beforehand?
That's... I don't know. It doesn't make that much sense. That's him.
Every time I think of this Irish dancing, I'm just thinking of Father Ted and Graham Norton. Every time I hear that headline this morning, I'm just thinking of the lads with the kind of the hands by the shoulders, dancing away. The
back page of the Racing Post is a preview of the FedEx, and they're saying Patrick Cantlay is primed for FedEx glory. Do you agree with that, John?
I was a Justin Thomas man. Unfortunately, he won last week. I know somebody who did a Tipperary Justin Thomas double, but I didn't. So I'm holding my powder now until the jump season.
Okay. Racing Post World Class, the highest rated horse on the planet, Crystal Ocean, kicks off 4 days of sensational action in a mouth-watering clash with Japan.
It's at York this after the Ebor meeting. Always a good meeting in August, if you've got a bit of spare time.
The Times, London, Smith fails to recover in time for test. Australia blows concussion, rules out talisman. And police to help United catch Pogba trolls is the story on that one. The Guardian has that Smith story as well. Bouncer war, no thanks. Australia wary of fiery response as Smith ruled out. And the Rugby Players Union has called for urgent action to protect players' mental well-being following stark warnings from Kernan Mail, the former Wasps and England Saxons forward. So mental health is a big issue in rugby. And finally from me is Gordon Darcy. I'm worried. I think we all are. We need a sign. And then time against Carberry as Ireland take a look at Plan B is the other. Yeah, so that's Jerry Thornley down in Quinta do Lago in
Portugal.
In Portugal, talking about that too. So obviously word is beginning to seep out that maybe Joey Carberry isn't fit enough to...
Well, what you said there is, do we know how injured he is? I think that's the key question.
Yeah.
But I think we'll learn a lot more today when Joe actually speaks.
And what the prognosis is.
Yeah.
Just on Micheál Donoghue, he had actually agreed a 2-year extension after the league. So it looks like something has changed.
It's a hard graft. I don't know if we even know that Liam Sheedy will be back next year in Tipperary. I think he will be.
Yeah,
it's a 1965 thing. But it's a lot of time, a lot of commitment, and 4 years is a long time. And I think Micheál, if he's just decided, I want to go back to civilian life, as it were, and give somebody another go. Kind of viewing it.
I mean, he'd be a good pundit as well over the next while. Good to get some recent experience.
I remember you brought Lucas, the Polish trainer and the strength and conditioning guy. He was I think he was involved on Irish rugby as well. He was hugely influential as well. But yeah, it's not easy to win All Irelands, and not even easy to get out of round robins. But I think Galway will be there, part of the conversation next year with Limerick as well as Tip.
Yeah, so people are saying that Jeff Linsky and Maddie Kenny are among the favourites to succeed. I guess Brian Hanley must be in that conversation after winning the minor All Ireland at the weekend as well. So Look, we'll talk with Cyril Farrell in a couple of minutes about that and see exactly what his take is on all of that. Here's some more Richie Hogan speaking to Joe on last night's show.
Somebody said to me, I think it was yesterday, that they were talking about an elbow. Any talk about an elbow there is absolutely crazy. My elbow does not connect with him at all. My shoulder absolutely does, or that your arm between your shoulder and your elbow. But I mean, they spoke about your arm not being down beside your side. I mean, this is not Irish dancing. I mean, we have hurleys in our hands. How do we hold a hurley, which is 36 inches long, if your arm is not bent? My technique in shouldering was completely right. It's just I didn't hit his shoulder. And that's absolutely the way it worked out. I mean, my elbow doesn't connect with him at all. I felt the connection when I did run past him.
Right. Because you know the angle, you know the fourth angle, the one from behind. There were different angles of it. There's one from behind, I guess.
Yeah. And actually
that's the one where
of it afterwards. But I mean,
that's the one where it looks like the elbow catches him. Actually.
Yeah. But I mean, to go through 4 or 5 angles and say, oh, this is the one here that shows that there was a connection of this part. I mean, what about the other 4 angles? I didn't understand that. I mean, if you look at it again, I actually lean down in with my shoulder, and his head is down there because he had taken a side step. Let's say.
He checks back. Yeah.
But I mean, you're talking about split second stuff here, and I mean, you know, you're really splitting hairs.
It's Richie Hogan speaking with Joe last night. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts in full. The best place to get it is offtheball.com this morning. If you've missed any of that interview, it's worth giving over the full half an hour to just listen to the whole story of Richie Hogan's season. He also talked about doing his medial ligament in the game against Limerick and not being able to train at all in advance of the All-Ireland final, and still to be picked by Brian Cody shows you just exactly how highly Brian Cody rates Richie Hogan. I think everybody rates him as a man after coming out and discussing exactly what happened at the weekend as well. Let's move on. We want to talk about the fact that Micheál Donoghue has stepped down as the manager of the Galway Hurlers as well. I'm delighted to say Cyril Farrell is with us this morning to talk through us what exactly seems to have happened here. Cyril, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, Ger.
I'm very surprised by this. We spoke with Micheál at the Galway races, and he was very relaxed and very calm, and you know, he seemed already to be planning for next year. But what's your take on what's happened here?
Yeah, it's big in the hurling circles down here. It's a very big surprise. Because again, as you know, he's a relaxed, very composed person, very kind of organised and top of everything. And everyone thought he was going forward again for another year or two. There wasn't any problem down, you know, that way as regards being. There was no nomination in it. He's just carrying on. He's reining himself and his backroom team, Fanny Ford and Noel Larkin, and the more backroom team. There was no talk about him going or anything. This is quite a shock, I'd say, to the county board last night.
Yeah, like when we come to look at his career as manager of Galway, ultimately it will be defined by the fact that he did manage to win an All-Ireland for the Galway Hurlers after such a long period of time, which marks him down as a really excellent manager.
Yeah, like he collected an All-Ireland and he also did a Leinster title and a league title and the Welsh Cup or two thrown in there, but he was very successful. And in Galway, the expectations would be high every year to believe that to be there or thereabouts, which they would be. This year in is very, very kind of premature for them. That's the only year in his reign, you know, and everyone thought it was upwards and onwards again because there's plenty of good hurlers in Galway, and everyone thought he was just carrying on. So it comes as a big surprise in the hurling world anyway. Yeah.
This year was obviously a very difficult year in terms of not getting out of the round robin, and you don't want to put it all down to the fact that Joe Canning was injured, but Joe Canning was injured and he's obviously such an important player for how the rest of the team functions. Is it possible he just felt like he'd taken that team as far as he could, or that it's a reaction to what happened this year?
Yeah, there's probably other things as well, Ger. Like, you know, he'd have a young family growing up, and he'd be very involved in business commitments as well. Like, and it is a full time. It's getting the job. Ger is getting the time element is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and to be successful anyway. And I suppose he took all these things. He must have. It wasn't a decision he made. Just a snap decision. It's his decision really. And I'd say the board are quite surprised because they were quite happy to have, to let him soldier on and to back him as much as they could. And now that the process started all over again, but you have to respect his decision as well because he wouldn't have taken it lightly.
Yeah, no doubt. What did actually go wrong for Galway this year, Cyril? Now that the season is over, what do you think happened?
Oh, well, I suppose, the scoring differences. It was a rare kind of circumstance, like scoring difference against Carlow, and it came down to the draw match between Kilkenny and Wexford. All these little things came into it. Plus the fact that Joe was injured and Conor Cooley was out for that match as well, and Conor Wheeler came off. They're all now Joe came on, but they're all three top forwards. You need everything going for you. And like Dublin played very well on the night. Like they were coming, they knew that to be a hard match in Parnell Park, and they also played a very hard match during the week. There was only 6 days in between against Kilkenny the weekend before, so all these things came to tell, and it came down to 5 margins. But that's the way that's the way it goes, and I wouldn't think it was just that defeat or anything that decided that it'd go to be the overall thing. They're there, they're there since 2015, and I'd say they've lived every you could nearly say 24 hours a day for that 4 or 5 years has been kind of soaking up hurling, really.
Yeah, I guess that is something that we take a little bit for granted, just the level of time and effort and energy and emotional energy that it takes to be the manager of an intercounty team. When you look at the Tipperary backroom team, I think somebody said there was 27 on it. There was certainly a picture of 24 people in the dressing room afterwards. And managing each of those individuals, as well as having an individual relationship with every one of the 40 members of your playing panel, that alone is a full-time job. Not to mention the bit where you're actually trying to come up with the hurling architecture and what your philosophy is and communicate that to everybody.
Yeah, that's very true, Gerald. It is a full-time job, but everyone has these backroom teams now because everyone's looking for that extra inch to win, and the winning is the winner takes it all. That's unfortunately the way it is, and the loser puts in as much effort as the winner, but the winner takes it all. And the backroom teams are getting bigger and bigger. Everything is getting more sophisticated, and you're looking for that extra inch. And as you said, to keep them all happy. Probably the easiest time, would you believe, Jerry, in the whole setup is the match itself. But all the training and all the different elements you have going on every day and nearly every night now. It's not alone is the training nights, but off nights they're in the gym and they're doing kind of video analysis and they're in saunas and everything is going on. So it's professional sport now played by amateurs. So it's kind of it's complicated in the sense that it takes up so much time, especially of the management team. There's no doubt about that.
Does that mean that we're getting to a breaking point here where it's only going to be people who have jobs that are off for the summer or potentially retirees who are actually able to take the manager's job into the future?
It looks like that, Jerry, unless you're very, very well set up, or else that you take time out and maybe you get a sponsor for the year or somebody to book it like that. But definitely, if you have a job, that you're tied at kind of say 9 to 5, or that you have to be at work a certain time. It's different now if you're working for a company where you can kind of do a lot of work at home, but so all the jobs don't lead that way. But it's nearly going to a full-time job, and you'll find more and more that's the way it's leading, because unless Croke Park can put an embargo on it, and how do you do that? Because every county board is raising money. It costs well over $1 million now to run a team in the year, so it's a big business. It isn't just it's an amateur game, but it's gone into a very, very big business.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen, Sarah, with this? Because it's a kind of fundamental question that we've refused as a society, as a country, as an organisation in the GAA to answer over the last 20 years. I know Pádraig Duffy tried to answer it one time when he floated the idea of full-time professional managers, but it got shut down straight away.
Yeah, and so the thing is, it's kind of it's ambiguous the way things are going on. To say they're not getting paid, but to get expenses, and everyone knows what it costs to run a county team. It's unreal. Club teams are drained only for the local lotters during the clubs. That keeps the club team going, and they're hit in for kind of to buy tickets for a county board, which they have to. You have to support a county team, but it's a vicious circle really. And to succeed, you're going to have to spend, and you're going to have the players coming through as well. Now the hurling is going well in the sense that there's 6 or 7 or 8 teams now that believe that they could win the All Ireland, which is great. They all have a shot at it, and with the All Ireland, it's now, it's definitely harder to win it. There's more games, but it's also harder to lose. You can lose 2-3 times even though it still win the All Ireland. So it actually suits the stronger setups really. If you get into the knockout at all, so that's the way it's gone. I don't know who they're going to look at it, but I don't know how they're going to stop it. It's like a railway train really picked up speed, and it might stop for a little while, but there's more and more going in, and you see the successful teams that have to put in, as you say. I remember Liam Sheedy telling me that when he went back in, the biggest change now, he has to have a second bus for all the backroom team, and which is true, but if you want to win, you nearly have to go that way. That's the way it is.
Yeah, no, it's true. That second bus thing kind of brought it home to everybody, I think. In terms of the actual Galway job, it's a great job at the minute. There's so many good young players coming through. obviously the minors being under 17 now for the last 2 years, and the previous year an under 18 team, but 3 All-Ireland, there will be, you'd hope, certainly some of those players coming through in the next 4 or 5 years able to actually compete at senior level. So it's a really good job at the minute to be taking the Galway senior inter-county job. Who are the main contenders in your eyes, Cyril?
Well, like Gerard, it's a good job, but it's great. There's great pressure on you because you're expected to deliver. Now, you're talking about the minors; they're good, but they're very, very young. But there's great hurlers as well between 20 to 23 or 4 that are kind of there playing club hurling and not kind of not exposed yet to the higher level, like, you know. So whoever comes in is going to have a look around. Now it's a big whoever's going to take it. They're going to have to consider the time element. Have they got the time? That's the biggest thing, because if you haven't got the time, if you're looking for time, you're under pressure straight away. Look, there'll always be people to take it. Like there's plenty of good coaches around. I don't know, the board will probably go through a process, of setting up, the usual thing and having the interviews, the whole lot, the proper process has to be followed. And they'd hope to have it as soon as they can. The club championship was up and running last weekend. There's that good for matches Friday and Saturday. And like when you see the club hurling, it's very high standard here. Those that have been in contention, I suppose, Jeff Linsky's over the under 20s. He's been around for a while there. Matty Kenny's name will come up again, even though he's probably still with Dublin. But there's plenty of fellas, and someone will come out of the woodwork. Like, you have the talent in Galway. It's really, you have the pieces, Gerard. It's a matter of it's like a jigsaw. It's a matter of putting the pieces together and getting them injury free.
Is it important for you that it's a Galway man who takes the job?
Well, I'd have no say in that. Like, they could go outside the county. They did it before with not great success, but fair success like they had, But I would think that, the way the different squads are coming now, Gerard, the emphasis would be on promoting your own, because you have coaches come along, say, with the under 70, the under 17s, the under 20s, development squads. These lads there do a lot of work, and they'd probably be looking for a shot at it, like, being homegrown. But like, I don't know what way the board are thinking that, but they'd have their own opinion on that. That would be divided, I'd say,
Yeah. Cyril, it feels like there was unfinished business from Micheál Donaghy. It feels like Galway is losing somebody who understands exactly how that squad is set up and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and who could actually have been leading them into the next couple of years. So I guess there's a bit of disappointment maybe that this decision has been reached.
Oh yeah, I'd say the players were very disappointed, because they got on very well. He had a good relationship with the squad. Like, he had a good squad. Okay, they got caught this year, but the last years have been like, we've been kind of spoiled here in Galway as supporters for the last years, because we've been thereabouts. Like, now you won the one, and you won your All-Ireland in 2017. You were beaten the point last year. Okay, you got knocked out here this year, but a lot of counties give the right hand to be at the end of the campaign. So it was only kind of one blip. It wasn't that really, I'd say, that decided. Maybe I'd say the time element is a big thing. Yeah. But like the next time Galway, like, they'll follow the team again, but you realise how good the summers were when you were kind of involved the whole time. Whereas this summer has felt different, that you weren't going up to Crow Park shouting your team on.
Yeah. Sarah, one last thing. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Richie Hogan talking last night about the red card and the sending off, and just the amount of time and effort and energy he's put into getting back to be able to play, to take part in the parade on All-Ireland final day. It took a fair amount of balls for him to come out and explain his side of things. When the dust settles, what's your take on Richie coming out, and also on the red card itself the weekend?
Oh, well, Richie's a great sportsman, and everyone knows that he's not a dirty player. Like, most forwards try to get the ball. Look, he just got his timing slightly wrong. He went in to kind of give a shoulder rattle, which was perfectly fair, and Barrett was set up for that, but then Carl took a step back, kind of avoided it, and he did. He connected with the jaw. Now, it was different angles on it, but you see, Ger, like, the players kind of know, and they have to realise the head tackle, and that's what. Even if you pull a fella's helmet now, that's a red card. You know what I mean? But the tackle where he just got the timing wrong, it was unfortunate. And, like, no one, I would say the referee was very slow. Like, he talked to the linesman, he didn't act that fast. To me, he did the right thing, because he settled down and had a look around and see what was happening. But no one wants to see. I'd say the ref didn't want to send him off at all. But like, he didn't get to make that decision. It was tough on Richie Hogan. But I think, for going back to the game, Ger, like, if Kenny look at the game, there's a big say in the game, because we're still in it. But like, I think if they look at the overall game, they realise that the tip will begin to come and get a roll on them. And what people didn't realise in Crow Park last Sunday, Joe, was there was a strong breeze in it with tip the second half. Now, Kenny had the first half not strong, and driving rain, so they were belting into that, which was hard. And once tip got in a groove and got in a roll, they have the stick hurl, stick pass, and beautiful stick stuff to turn you off, and they did that. Like, they are capable of doing that. They are very good hurlers, like.
Yeah, no doubt about that, and that should really be the big story into the winter. Fair enough. Cyril, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
No problem.
Cyril Farr there, giving us some thoughts on the fact that Micheál Donoghue has stepped down as the manager of the Galway Hurlers. A bit more from that Richie Hogan interview. Here he is, obviously denied what would have been the perfect send-off in Sunday's final if Kilkenny had won. Here he is talking about eyeing a comeback in 2020.
Yeah, I'll sit down and I'll think about it. Look for me, if we'd won on Sunday, it would have been a nice way to maybe sign off.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So for me, obviously, I'll do whatever I can to play maybe another year and see how it goes from there.
Because, I don't think anybody, geez, you've been such a brilliant player, my God. For that to be your last minute in a Kilkenny jersey just wouldn't sit right with anyone, and I'd say you least of all.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody wants to finish their career like that, and I mean, for me, I absolutely walked out on in Croke Park the last day in the parade, and absolutely said to myself, look, play your best, because you mightn't necessarily ever be here again. Even though I work in Croke Park, believe it or not, so I'm there every day, which is a different part to it. But in terms of being on the pitch, doing what you love, I just take every game as if it's my last now. But no, I don't want to finish like that. And maybe it's a good thing. Maybe that decision that I was probably would have had to make over the winter has probably been made already for me. So yeah. So I think, to be honest with you, I owe it to myself to do whatever I can to play again. Yeah.
Daithí Regan is with us this morning to react to the breaking news that Micheál Donoghue stepped down last night as the manager of the Galway Hurlers. Daithí, good morning to you.
Morning, how are you?
Yeah, good. What's your take on this? It's a bit of a blow for Galway, you would say?
I would have thought so, to be honest with you, yeah. The vibes out of the place were that he was going to stay. And of course, he didn't come out and publicly deny or confirm that he was going to stay or go following the early exit from the championship. But I don't think there was any groundswell of hope in Galway that he wouldn't stay on. And talking to any of the lads you'd know down there, I mean, Micheál Donoghue has kind of brought them an All-Ireland final, brought them back as defending champions against an outstanding Limerick side, and came within an ace of putting back-to-back as well. So you can only assume, obviously, of course, it's private, it's for private reasons. And I always think at this time of the year, people are really quick to question and ask of managers, are you staying and are you going? I really think the time that's given nowadays by managers as well as players to it, really an element of distance should be created to allow people to sit back and take stock and decide, because you're talking about families involved, children involved, work scenarios involved. And when you're managing a top-class inter-county team, you have no time for yourself whatsoever. Something suffers. If you're managing a club team, something suffers. You're away from your home a lot of the time. If you're managing an inter-county team, you're away from your home an even greater amount of time. And like I say, when you have families, when you have children, when you have jobs, well then, we shouldn't second-guess Micheál Donoghue or any other manager that ever takes a decision like this, because it's their entitlement and they've got to do what's right by them, not by Galway Hurling, Wexford Hurling, Clare Hurling, Limerick Hurling. You've got to do what's right for you and your family. So I think it's got to be respected.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very good point. And the difficulty that these managers have in managing their time and making sure that they're giving enough time to the team, to the backroom team, to the style of play and what they're trying to do, to their families and to their work, is probably asking too much of any normal human being. They're all incredibly high achievers, and we probably forget that sometimes when we're criticising how well or otherwise the team is playing. Just a point on that in terms of his legacy. If at some point in the future the situation arises where Micheál Donoghue is interested in getting back involved in inter-county hurling and back involved in inter-county hurling with Galway, his CV is unbelievably impressive, really.
Oh, without question. And I mean, it's not without precedent in that there's already been talk about, possibility of Derek McGrath returning to Waterford. That's obviously not happening now, but I think he's a gentleman that we certainly will see back. Again, Micheál Donoghue has been involved previously with Tipperary, so his stock is certainly high. And in relation to Galway, I think the door is absolutely open. I think if you look at Cork, Kieran Kingston is favoured, and there's a feeling of unfinished business that he left a Cork team in a far better state than he did when he actually came into the job. So his legacy is there, and it's one that's held in high regard. And I think when you have a personality like Micheál Donoghue, he's highly regarded by all within the game, both from a media point of view, both from his players, from a county board, which of course is absolutely critical, because ultimately they're the people that employ him on behalf of Galway hurling people and the Galway hurling clubs. I think his stock is certainly of a high enough standard and regard that if and when a managerial position comes up again in Galway again, or for that matter, other counties, albeit I can't see him go anywhere right now. I think he'll probably take a sabbatical, maybe get back involved in the club scene. But why not? His legacy is there. He's won an All-Ireland title. Not many in Galway have done it since 1988. So yeah, he deserves all the respect and the plaudits that'll come, because it'll be plaudits and nothing else that'll come his way. He's a gentleman.
Di, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Nice to talk to you.
Di Regan giving us some quick thoughts there on the news that Micheál Donoghue has stepped down after 4 years in charge and an All-Ireland winning campaign, of course, with the Galway Hurlers. It's just turning 16 minutes past 8 this morning. You're listening to OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, on the Go Loud app, or perhaps you're watching us on youtube.com/off the ball. However you're consuming us this morning, you're very welcome. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the stream, or of course you can always get in touch by WhatsApp. The number is on our Twitter at Off the Ball AM. Back after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
300 clubs getting vital cash funding. Over 450 schools and juvenile teams supported nationwide. More than 11,000 jerseys, balls and equipment donated. And record-breaking crowds at the last 3 TG Cahir All-Ireland finals. Those are serious numbers. That is serious support. Lidl, proudly supporting ladies Gaelic football.
OTB AM.
All right, you're very welcome along to this week's Shot Clock. It's time for another episode of the world's favourite sports debate show. We were supposed to have a referee this week, but he slept in. That's why there's only one presenter, Kieran. Can you believe it? A Kerry went sleeping in. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, it sounds like a boycott, Jar. It sounds like a boycott more than a sleep in.
He got the message from the whoever the Grand Poobah is of the Kerry Mafia. Here, listen, you need to be out there today.
You had a great substitute in Tommy to jump in though, right?
There you go. Always the best. Look, we had a topic. We were going to start with Richie Hogan. We've got to start with Micheál Donoghue. He's somebody that you know very well, because obviously you were in with the Galway Hurlers. A bit of a bombshell, the decision to leave, because he was definitely somebody who you felt like had a full control over exactly what this Galway team was capable of. He must have been looking at what Tipperary did, from missing out on the qualification for the All-Ireland series last year and winning an All-Ireland next year, and I'm sure that would have been the message going, look, Tip went from last to first, you guys have already been first, you know exactly what it takes. So were you surprised with the news broke last night? I was small, but I talked to Micheál yesterday. It's tough. It's a tough gig being a county manager of your own county, because there's constant kind of pressure on, especially when you've landed that All Ireland like Micheál and the team did 2 years ago. There's that expectancy every year that you're going to come back with it, and as we know, the hurling is ultra competitive. There's a number of teams that can come along and beat you. There's a number of teams that can win the All-Ireland every year. We saw it this year. We saw a very fancied Limerick team that when Kilkenny showed up on the day and showed their stuff, they came out the wrong side of a result. So, but I think Micheál is a big family man. He's got a young family. They're getting into an age now where you have to be pretty hands-on as a parent. So I would say that would have been a big factor in it, and it's disappointing, because I know the players and the regard that they hold Micheál in. So I'd say there'll be a lot of them disappointed this morning. But look, that's the way it is. We can't, a man's his own man, and he's got to do what he's got to do for his family, number one. And especially when you've given it 4 years. That's an awful lot of commitment in modern day stuff to pour your life into for 4 years. So that's what this story is here. There's no smoking gun, because he signed up for another 2 years. I think either in the middle of the league campaign or before the league campaign, got into the knockout stage. And certainly around that time anyway, he'd agreed to stay on. That, like, maybe it was always intention to leave after the year, and that's a good way of kind of kicking that can down the road, and so nobody asks you about it, because it just
Yeah, that's the impression I would have got, Jar, from when he first contacted me last year about getting involved, and he said he kind of wanted to give it one last go, and he wanted to leave no stone unturned. And but on the kind of, it was on the kind of shock exit, the way it happened, the loss in Parnell Park, then tied in with the draw that you wouldn't kind of, draws are hard to come by in hurling because scores are scored so easily. You wouldn't have felt that it was, at that time I was kind of thinking, it'll be tough to go on that. But look, he's Galway number one. He's the Galway jersey number one at heart. And, maybe he felt with everything that was going on at home with the family. And there's probably other things I'm not privy to. But, the main thing I got out of him when he was talking to me yesterday was, it's the commitment levels with work and his family are an awful lot. And, he really feels like he needs to be kind of giving it almost 150%. There's no middle ground with him. There's no kind of doing it and putting other stuff first. Galway comes first, the hurling team comes first, all these players come first before everything else. And when you've done that for 4 years, it can take its toll. And maybe he decided in the end, and from talking to him, that there was other stuff that was more, they had to look after at that's more critical, I suppose. And when you have a young family and they're all kind of starting to go into secondary school, and that, it's a very tricky time to be around. So I'm sure he wants to be there for them, because when you're a county manager and you have a full-time job like he does, a young family can be put to the side a small bit, and it's not anybody's intentions. It's just the demands of the job when you have to watch and you have to trawl through video and you have to make all these phone calls and keep fellas going. And look, the players love Micheál, and they would have done anything for him. So but look, it'll be a chance for someone else to come in now, and a chance for all them players to lay down their own markers as well. But he was a great servant. What he did for Galway, landing that title, there was memorable scenes, and probably very unlucky against Limerick last year in the final as well. So, and this year was a bit of an out of nowhere kind of a shock to the system. I felt that Galway were just starting to tick. I think the win down in Nolan Park was a great win, and we got the sucker blow in Parnell Park, and then we were going to the dressing room, going, we have to dust ourselves down for a quarter final, and then you hear the result is a draw, and next thing you're sitting around the dressing room, and it was the worst kind of shock I've ever kind of received in a dressing room, because it was on the way. You were hearing that Kilkenny were up a point, Wexford were up a point, and you were kind of hearing that this was all going on. And just as we kind of got to the dressing room, news filtered through that the game was actually a draw, and that we were up, and that Galway were out now at this stage. So it was a very tough one to take, I was kind of hopeful after that was so tough that he might just get another year out of it to kind of to see if he could have that other shot at it. But look, he's made the decision on them terms, and you know what? It's good to make it on your own terms anyway. So it's tough for Galway hurling, because I think he was very much appreciated by the fans, and he had a great relationship with the fans up there. So yeah, it is a tough one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on, because we want to talk about some of the other issues this week from Shot Clock. Richie Hogan's red. I think almost everybody is agreed that it was an unfortunate piece of timing from Richie Hogan, but that ultimately, when contact is made with the head area, the referee, under the rules of the game, has no choice but to send the player off. Kieran, that's the rules. That's what has to happen, right?
Yeah, probably. Like they're the rules, but I think when it comes to All Ireland finals, there's no next game. There's no tomorrow, and I think to be honest, when Richie was going in for the tackle, you do that every time you go in for a shoulder. If you're running into shoulder somebody and they try to avoid you, that's the natural instinct, just to make contact with them. You've made all the effort to get over there to stop them. If Richie comes in and throws an elbow in that kind of manner, absolutely, it's a straight red card. But I just felt in the spirit of the game, the spirit that Richie Hogan plays the game, there wasn't really a bad stroke. I didn't think Cahill Barrett's, hurlers do that when they're trying to flick the ball. They can't flick the ball, Ger, and stop their hurley automatically. It's heavy enough when you swing it across. He caught Richie on the face guard. It cut Richie on the nose. But Richie's the calmest player and the classiest player, nearly one of the classiest players ever to Grayscope Parks. When I was listening to him last night. He said, yeah, he felt nothing about the tackle. Do you know what I mean? That there was no issues with it. You saw the thump he got against Bill Cooper against Cork. He got absolutely drilled. He bounced up off the ground. He never remonstrated with the player. He never remonstrated with the referee. He just got up and jogged back into his position after getting an absolutely unmerciful thump. So, you know, I just think in an All-Ireland final, at the speed these guys are going, with everything that's on the line, technically it was a red card by the rules of the book. But I think in this kind of a situation, early in the game, you know, I think you can look at it and give a yellow card. You're not going to get in trouble for a yellow card for it. I think it does is better for the game. You know, let's call a spade a spade. It spoils the game. We're all sitting at home watching the All-Ireland final and you're kind of going, Jesus, this has spoiled the game. So, like, you know, just in that, you know, in that instance,
does the spoil game matter? So if he led with the elbow, it would have been a red card. The game would have been spoiled.
Yeah, if he led with the elbow, but he didn't lead with the elbow. He went to shoulder him. Cathal Barrett, by his own, won't disagree with me on this, isn't a big man, so he's low already. Richie isn't a big man, so they're two kind of smaller fellas going at full tilt, you know, to try and win a ball back for Kilkenny. And I just don't think. I think there has to be malice for a red card in my eyes. I don't know if that, you know, there has to be malice behind something for a red card. You know, I don't think there was any malice in that. You know, I've seen enough red cards, and most of them there's a bit of malice in them, but there honestly was no malice in this. This was a fella going to drill a guy out over the sideline to get the Kilkenny crowd going and try and help his team win an All-Ireland final. And you even saw by his reaction, he was never expecting a red. I know, in fairness to the ref, he did consult with people. He did take his time in the call. So look, it's a call that has to be made. I just think going forward, when you're at that stage in an All-Ireland final, and there's no real malice in the challenge, you know, I think there's common sense. I think there's a bit of common sense can come into it and kind of go, look, it was just, he just mistimed it. You know, Cathal Barrett got up and played the rest of the game. He had a powerful game after that. So it wasn't something like he took a guy out of it and you're meant to be carried off. So yeah, look, I know Richie, and there isn't this bad streak in him, and he plays the game the right way. And I just thought in that instance, you know, 28 minutes into the game, that the ref could maybe look at it and give a yellow and give a firm talking to Richie and say, Richie, one more bad tackle, you're gone. I think that wouldn't affect it much. Tipperary probably would have still won the game. They were probably the better team all year, but I think we would have got a much better, you know, game. It was a game that was robbed by that incident, and I think possibly you could do a bit of common sense in it, Ger.
All right, that's certainly one point. Here is Richie Hogan speaking last night. If anybody missed it, just to bring you right back up to speed, here is his reaction to being sent off. This is exactly what he said.
I watched it back there this morning. Obviously, I stayed away from it earlier on, but I mean, I was going in for a shoulder on Cathal Barrett, and he sidestepped inside, and my momentum kind of took me through. In my opinion, there's absolutely no way it was a sending off. But I suppose that's the way these things go. I mean, sometimes those decisions go for you, and sometimes they go against. And yeah, it was one of those things for me.
All right. So our next topic this morning is about the issue of tax breaks for GAA players. Kieran, what's your plan here?
I'm retired, Ger, so I can't be that this is myself. But no, I was reading Cathal Barrett's piece the weekend, and you know, there's such an industry in the GAA. Yes, it's amateur and it's a great organisation and it brings people together all over the world, and it is fantastic, and we know all that. But what we're saying is that players of all levels at senior grade, you know, come together. They're probably coming together September, October, to have that first meeting and to start training through the winter and to build it into the league. And you're basically 10 or 11 months, you're putting, you know, 20 to 30 hours a week into this. And a lot of people have to take time away from work, Ger. And gone be the days where I got the soft job in the bank, Ger, back in the day when I was breaking into the Kerry team as a young starlet. I got the soft job. But I quickly realised the days of the soft jobs were gone. You know, I had I had a manager that was raised in England that had no real, there was no
wasn't taking any of your crap, basically. That was it.
Exactly, yeah. It wasn't like, I think 20 or 30 years ago, fellas got the job in the bank and they were mighty men. They could go off playing golf and they could pat fellas in the back and bring in the few bob every week and everything be okay. But them days are gone. So players are getting no breaks now. The industry is too busy. It's work. You got to do your job. You got to deliver on your job. But then you're trying to deliver for a Kerry or a Mayo as well. Chris Barrett's average week, he's getting into the car at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, driving all the way to train over in Mayo, on getting a lift over on a bus. He's trying to work on the way over on the bus. He trains, they have a meeting, he eats his dinner. He gets home at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. He's back in the office the next morning at 7 o'clock because he's had to leave early the day before. So that's grand in a week. But when you're trying to deal with that, along with the pressures of representing your county, of trying to fulfil your potential as a player, as a team, you're playing these massive games in Croke Park, you're playing in massive All-Ireland finals. He's doing it a long time. The Cluxtons, and I said this a long time ago, the Cluxtons and the Mark O'Shea's, the guys, Tomas, that are up around 88, 90 championship games, they're just not going to be around anymore because fellas can't give it that much. Stephen's a teacher, I believe. It's a bit easier. Mark was a teacher. Tomas was a teacher. They have the summer off. It's a bit easier to do it. But when you're trying to do all this, you're throwing a young family into the mix and you're trying to represent your county, and the only incentive is to win the All-Ireland because everything else is a failure for any of the top teams. But we've got an instance. I was down in Finbars with Off the Ball and doing a road show a few months ago, and I found out for the first time that the ladies footballers and camogie players don't even get mileage. They pay their own way to go to training. So we're filling Croke Park with concerts, with big games. There's massive revenue coming in, and I just think there could be, some tie-in between the Croke Park and the tax office, or the revenue, and kind of say, listen, lads, is there something we can do for amateur players here that, Carl was talking about? It's a tax, it's a professional sports person's tax relief. We're not professionals, but if you told Carl Barrett he wasn't a professional after all the training he put in, or if you told any of the female Dublin footballers or the female Cork footballers that they weren't professional with all the effort they're putting in, they'd be highly insulted with you, Ger. And the thing reads, a professional sports person can claim a tax deduction of 40% against gross receipts for up to 10 years during their career. If that'd be a nice incentive. What would that mean for the average GA player? Probably that when he finishes playing, he might get enough to maybe put a deposit in a house for himself. We have GA players that are going to college for 8 and 9 years because they can live the professional life of a sports person. But at the end of the day, they're not making revenue for themselves. If they get a bad injury and they have to retire, they have no financial standing to go buy a house. So I just think there needs to be something done. And I think I agree with Chris Barrett and that's my thoughts. I don't know if you have any counter thoughts.
Well, I just think that this isn't for the tax man to solve. This is for the GAA to solve. Because if we're talking about American college sport all the time, and it's always, the colleges are making all this money. No one thinks that the US government should step in and pay the basketballers or the college footballers who are making all the money for the colleges. Everybody thinks the college should pay the players who are generating the revenue. So if there's a belief from the players that they need to be paid for what they're doing, it shouldn't be the taxman who pays. It should be the GAA.
Yeah, but what about the income the players bring to Dublin every weekend, Jar? What about the income players bring? Are you saying that there's no input from players to the taxman when every fella's buying his pint of Guinness over in the Croke Park Hotel?
What has that got to do with the taxman though? So if that's the case, then every concert promoter in the country, the Electric Picnic Festival organisers, they need a tax rebate because
I didn't say it was all the tax. I'm saying there has to be some tie-in with the GAA, with what the players are bringing to the economy on a weekly basis or on a yearly basis.
Who makes the most? Who makes the most? The GAA makes the most, right? They're the ones who... Yeah. It was 90 quid a ticket and 7 quid for a programme at the weekend for the All-Ireland final. The stadium's full and there's the whole middle tier that are paying more than that for their tickets. So what was it, 6-7 million in revenue from that one game? 6-7 million revenue?
It's €500 a room for a night in Dublin for Kerry people going up in a few weeks, sir.
Yeah, and look, that's price gouging, and that's a terrible aspect of Irish life where we just gouge whenever we possibly can, whenever there's an opportunity to. But I think that the GAA could clearly deal with this issue somewhere along the way if the players decided that they wanted to go. But the players are always like, we don't want to go professional.
But this is nothing to do with professional. This is just so you can play your game, you can put all the effort in, and you can tell your wife who's at home with your 2 kids every day, look, listen, Pet, when I retire in 2 years, there's going to be a bit of a kickback here for all the effort and what we put into the game. And I just think both for male and female at senior level in both codes, you know, that if there was a bit of a kickback, or whether the GAA did it, I remember we talked about it in Shot Clock months ago, even if there was something like, you know, if there was $5,000 for every 5 years you played. So if you know, something small like that. I'm not talking profession. I'm not talking money. I'm talking about when a fella retires, that he can, everything he's put on hold and all the extra overtime he's turned down and all the time he's missed that he got deducted from work, that there was something there for him to fall back on when he goes to try and buy a house for his young family. That's or you know, whoever it is going buying a house. I just think there could be more done for the players on that side of it. We don't want to be professional. We never want money. We don't expect the GAA to pay money. But if there was some kind of a tie in here, I think it would be no harm.
All right. 2 quick things. Is it much better to try and get people educated at the age of 15 that if you're going to have a GAA career, you also need to look after your own proper career so that you aren't somebody who's always constantly turning down overtime. You find something suitable for your skills that you can do, you know, either at home or in spare time, and massively invest in that so that it's done with the county boards and with the GPA combined.
Yeah, it's all well and good, Ger, but the game is only going one way on a professional level, and it's skyrocketing towards the demands on players are big. And what are you doing? Sorry, James Horan, I can't come to training because I've double overtime this evening and I'm getting paid an extra 400 quid, but I need to turn it down because we've rent to pay or we've a mortgage to pay. You know, you don't belong being dropped off your team, going down the pecking order, and then what's it all about? So I don't think you're ever going to get guys are going to give it everything and give it all the commitment. They're going to be in the gym 3 mornings a week at 6 o'clock before work. They're going to be commuting to training. They're going to be away all weekend. You're not going to stop players doing that. So that's only going to get worse, by the way, as teams try and compete with the Dublins of this world.
Okay, let's move on. Next issue is trolls and racists. This is on the back of the horrific racial abuse that Paul Pogba has suffered on Twitter this week. What's your take on all this, Kieran?
It's sickening. It's a disgrace. But like, you know, we've keyboard warriors everywhere. You know, I've got my fair share of them over the years. These are adults in Ireland that could have kids, I don't know. But, you know, some of the stuff they say to you, you'll be just scratching your head, really. And, you know, what drives me simple altogether are these fake accounts where these cowards don't even put their name to the text or put their name to their message they're sending you or whatever they're atting you on. It's a sickening culture that's there. And, yeah, I don't know, Jerry, you're a lot smarter than me. Surely, bit of God, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and these people can come together and come up to help that, because this is a sporting thing and this is Paul Pogba, but this comes down to your 14-year-old child who's getting it off a group of friends who are bullying her online, because that's what it is. It's a form of bullying. But yet we do it on a daily basis in Ireland. People will say this about Premiership players, they'll say this about GAA players, they'll say this about rugby players, and they'll put it up on their thing and, oh, I'm having a go and I don't like this guy or whatever. But at the end of the day, if their children are looking at it, they say, oh, this is okay. We can say what we want about people here. There's an old saying, if you've nothing good to say nothing at all. And it's you know, even WhatsApp groups, I see them, a lot of them are toxic after a game, slating people. You know, my family WhatsApp now really is and team WhatsApps are about all I want to be on, because you know, everything else is a slating game. It's you know, for the social media channels, how they can come together, and that when someone goes to open an account or send a letter out to everybody that has an account and look for them to send in their ID to verify their account. I can't understand how something like that can't be done, but maybe I'm naive to the point of that there's way too much to it. But maybe you might enlighten me on what could be done to stop this, because we're going to have to stop it, Jar. Like, it's going to go to the point where, you know, people aren't able to take stuff. Like, I'm a big boy, I'm able to take all that stuff, but, you know, I wouldn't fancy my daughter in 10 years getting the same treatment, to be quite honest with you.
If you try and open an online gambling account, they tie it to a credit card and they ask you if you ever want to withdraw money, you need to put a utility bill and some ID. The trouble is that all of these organisations that we're talking about have millions and millions and millions of anonymous accounts. So you have to close them down, and suddenly the figures that you've reported as your user base are massively inflated and everybody begins to see it. The emperor has no clothes, basically.
Yes.
So the anonymous accounts help profit lines, and while that continues to happen, they're going to pretend that they're doing something about it, as opposed to just saying no more anonymous accounts, no accounts without a photograph, and no accounts without like a verified 2-step email address.
Yeah, but on the back of the Paul Pogba and Marcus Rashford and United, they're a big club. You know, could they do anything as in boycotting these things or trying to create enough that get maybe all the Premiership teams together, get sporting organisations together and say, listen, we're going to tell our sports stars to come off this for an amount of time until you get your shit together and fix what's going on here. Well, is there something that could be orchestrated like that, I wonder?
If LeBron...
A world closure Twitter account day or something? If
LeBron and Pogba got together and decided that they were going to come off social media for 15 days, then the profit line at all of those organisations, on Instagram, on Twitter, whatever their one of choice is, would immediately be impacted. So they do have some power, and they just need to start wielding it, and the clubs need to get behind them as well to do the same thing. And then you need the Premier League to say, we're going to shut down everything, every related tweet to us, we're going to issue copyright against, unless there's some deal done.
Yeah, that sounds good, Jar. We'll send LeBron and Pogba the shot clock episode.
There you go.
To talk to their employers.
We wanted to talk about backroom teams, the Sheedy effect or the backroom team effect. It was pointed out that they have a second bus. Cyril Farrell mentioned it this morning, to carry the backroom team for Tipperary. I think it was 27 or 28. One of the lads said there's like individual goalkeeper, backs, forwards, bunch of different strength and conditioning, bunch of nutritionists. It's a massive game now, but you can see the impact of it on the field of play as well. And yet Eamon O'Shea is the one that everybody talks about, creating the space and the magic that team had. So what's the truth? What won Tip the All-Ireland? Is it the money to the backroom team? Is it the individuals? How does this work?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of everything. I think first of all, you have to have someone that pulls it all together, and Sheedy has been unbelievable this year in that respect. Since day one, he's had Tipperary flying. If you remember them in the league, they were scintillating. In Munster Championship, they flew through everything. They had a bit of a blip in the final. And since then, you know, they put on an awesome show last week, granted against a 14-man Kilkenny, but you know, they were going to win it. They were going to win it anyway. I think they had that confidence level built up all year. And as you said, you know, I think managers are very important, but managers will be the first people to tell you that they pick the team and they send you out there, and really it's the players that win you or lose you. Or when the players win, when the team wins, it's always the players who won the game. They were brilliant. But when the team loses, it's always the manager that lost the game. And I just think, you know, in my eyes, the day the selector is gone.
Yeah,
like,
tell us about this, because this is something that you think is important.
Yeah, I think it is, because I think it all. First of all, when it all falls in the manager, it's wrong. When you have a number of guys in a backroom team and they're all driving, they all should be held to some kind of regard. And I think this kind of selector thing was an old-fashioned thing. Oh, he's there to pick the team. There's no such thing now. I would say Eamon O'Shea is the offensive coordinator for Tipperary. That's a tag in the you know, you'll have assistant coaches in America will have certain tags after their name. You know, Dara Egan, who we built a pitch with him at PST over in Killidangan, and I met him 3 years ago. He wasn't involved then, but I got straight away. I was like, geez, this fella's so sharp when it comes to sports and teams. I was still playing with Kerry at the time. We were talking about Kerry. He was talking about Tip Hurling. Obviously, you know, Tommy Dunn obviously is well involved. And then you go to your strength guys, your nutrition guys and all that. But I think your management team, you know, you should have your manager, you should have your fella that looks after the offensive side of the game. Probably like a Jason Sherlock for Dublin would do a lot of work with the forwards. Then you might have a defensive kind of guy, coordinator that looks after, you know, a puck out or a kick out strategist now is huge in the game. The game is based around possession. So I think having somebody that can, you know, utilise the spacing of pitches and creating space and getting somebody to win constant possession from your own kick outs or puck outs is massive. And yeah, just the selector thing is too vague for me anymore. And I think we should, you know, it'll almost empower those guys more. But at the same time, if the forward function doesn't work in a big game, you know, it's not just the managers. Then, you know, all of a sudden, hold on now, Eamon O'Shea was the offensive coordinator. Or, you know, what was he doing in the whole thing? I think the manager, and I'm sure Micheál O'Donoghue would probably, you know, back this up. The axe falls on the manager's neck when the team loses and goes out. And that's the way it is. But, you know, the other guys are putting way too much into it these days. First of all, to kind of just say they're other selector, that's, there's a way more in inter-county management now in backroom teams. And I just think Liam Sheedy, I think he got the backroom team right, and it's a huge thing going forward for teams, Ger. Your manager is critical, I get that, but you got to surround yourself as a manager, you got to surround yourselves with very sharp guys that know what they're about, and that's what Liam Sheedy did, and the proof was in the pudding in Croke Park last Sunday.
All right, our guest this week is Martin Conroy. He's the coach of the Irish under-20 basketball team. Martin, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, Ger. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Kieran is doing his best to get the whole country interested in basketball, and he's doing a great job of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching the bit of the podcast last week there while we were in Kosovo, so it was great to hear a bit of basketball. Great.
Kieran, tell us about Martin. What's going on?
Look, I suppose, firstly, Martin, thanks for coming on Shot Clock and thanks for taking the call. Firstly, look, just congrats on the success, beating Team GB in the bronze medal game, going up to Division A 2 years after making history with your under-18s in Dublin 2 years ago. There must have been this massive buzz on the final buzzer.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was a fellow Kerry man, actually, Tommy O'Mahony, had the girls when they were under-18. And
that's right.
They lost to Germany in the final in Dublin.
Yeah.
The other day, I suppose, after coming off the back of the semi-final defeat to Bulgaria, which was a pretty tough game for us, and to go back out and do what we did on the Sunday, then in the final, in the bronze medal final against GB, was fantastic. We've had some great basketball. First quarter, we were 22-5 up at one stage, ended up 22-7. Yeah, it was pretty exciting stuff.
Pretty exciting stuff, and it's some achievement considering the last time an under-20 team won a game was almost 11 years ago, and it was Tralee's very own Hall of Famer Jimmy Diggins was the coach that time. So that's the last time an under-20s team has won a game to beating Team GB and going up to Division A next year is massive. It's a massive step in for the programme in Irish basketball in general.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't just we beat Croatia on the way as well. We topped both
it's huge,
which was fantastic.
That's Croatia's national sport.
Yeah, absolutely. These girls have done a lot for basketball, especially women's basketball. And they're phenomenal athletes, but they're a phenomenal team as well. The unity is unbelievable. There was 9 girls from the 2017 squad on this squad. And they just pulled together so well, and been around them for the 10 days and seeing how they act with each other was just amazing.
Yeah, and been around them for I saw they were like the Spurs under Popovich at one stage. They popped the ball around about 19 passes and picked out Claire Mealy, I think, under the basket for one of the highlights of the tournament. But this team has brought new levels of success to Irish basketball that are unheralded. Really, it's the largest indoor sport obviously played in the country. These girls work hard. We've talked about it. They're training every weekend since April. They go on a Friday night, they do a 3-hour session. They have a 6-hour session on a Saturday. They have another 3-hour session plus video plus a game on a Sunday. And they all go back home. They drive home. That's some commitment to the Irish jersey. What kind of funding or support are you getting to keep this going, Mark?
The girls themselves would have paid a lot of the money towards it. We did some fundraising. We got some sponsorship in as well. We did a golf classic and a race night up in Portage Golf Club, and kind of earned a few bob that way. And you're kind of throwing buckets out on the doors for any practice games you have, and hopefully getting a few bob in that way. But unfortunately, with the way the programs are, I suppose, and it's not just the girls' program; it's every program. Funding is kind of an issue, but it's getting better as it's going along. It's just unfortunate that kids have to pay to represent their country, I suppose.
Yeah, it's okay. And is there any Basketball Ireland do their best for you? Is there anything coming from anywhere else, or is it all kind of self-funded for these teams?
No, it's self-funded at the moment. Some of the teams go out and get their own sponsorship. I see that Paul Kelleher's under-18 boys got a very good sponsorship deal there with Frank and Honest Coffee Company.
Okay.
I think Michael Lynch did the same up in Galway with I think it was Aaron O'Leary. You can go and get sponsors. The tough thing at the moment is to attract a sponsor. I suppose with these.
Yeah, but the social media coverage you're getting, and I know Gareth Maguire's daughter Erin had that cheeky off the back pass against Croatia. I'm sure that would have sickened the Croatian nationals, people who treat basketball as their national sport, to see a young Irish girl pull that move off and then finish the layup and get the 2 points. That type of thing, that got massive coverage in Ireland. So obviously a sponsor that was involved in the team would make hay off of something like that.
Absolutely, 100%. And it wasn't just in Ireland. I mean, like I saw the FIBA website afterwards, and it blew up. When Enya did that, and like it was, that's huge. Like, I mean, things like that. Surely, when sponsors see that there's 15, 20,000 hits on just one play, that's a carrot for them to go and say, yeah, well, this is maybe something we can get involved in.
And like, it's performance, and that's all you want. When you train that hard all summer for your team, going over there winning is all you want, and that's huge. But come here to me, it was an unbelievable squad. I watched a lot of the games. They seemed to be really in tune with each other, but just two girls in particular, along with Enya Maguire after that play. But Claire Melia and Dana Finn, they were outstanding throughout the tournament.
Yeah, like as I said to you earlier, like they were a fantastic team. Obviously, Claire's efficiency was off the charts. She was the most efficient player in the tournament with 25.2. But like what she did during the week was phenomenal, and she's been doing that for a long time now. Dana Finn, the same thing. Like, she's an unbelievable athlete. Gets out running the floor and does some things on the floor that you don't think are actually possible at times. Like, as a coach and even as a basketball person, you kind of shake your head as to how the ball goes in the basket, but she makes it happen and does it time after time. But there is,
and what's the future? What's the future for these girls, Martin?
Claire is heading away to the States. She's going, I think it's the 25th of this month. She's going to St. Joe's in Philadelphia. She's going to be playing D1 basketball, and of course her own Susan Moran is over there as one of the associate coaches. So that's a big step up for Claire.
No doubt.
She's looking forward to that challenge. Dana is away in Erasmus, going to Spain, I think, in September for the year as part of her college course. Okay. Most of the other girls are going to be in college in Ireland for the next 2 years or so, and then they're looking at their kind of careers outside of basketball and outside of school after that.
Well, hopefully they all end up playing for the senior team. Martin, congratulations, it's a great story, and hopefully you get a bit of sponsorship as well. If anybody out there has any spare money and wants to celebrate one of the best Irish success stories, we'll put them in touch with you, Martin. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Martin. No bother.
Just one quick point before we get on to our predictions, and we're way over time here, Kieran. It's 8:52 this morning. You've been calling for Kerry fans to get their colours up, according to our former colleague Jerry O'Sullivan of Radio Kerry. He says, following the call from @StarryBoy14 to show your colours, Ken Mayer puts up the green and gold in the All-Ireland final. What's going on? Are you cheating on us with Radio Kerry?
I might be doing a bit of cheating on you, Jerry. No, man, look, I remember as a player, my first All-Ireland as a player was when I was playing on the team was obviously 2006. I was there in 2005, but when you're not playing or you're not fully kind of out there all the time, it's not overly the same. It's a bit more now with the squad game, the way it's played, but I was well down the squad in 2005. I was an unused sub in that All-Ireland final. But I remember 2006 and the run of momentum that Kerry were on. If you take how bad we were blowing the Munster final, and then you beat Longford, and then you beat this unbelievable Armagh team, then you beat Cork again, and then you Mayo, shocking Dublin on the other side, and they were coming for another crack at this after 2004, and it was just a build-up in Kerry that kind of it just got you going. There was flags everywhere. There was flags out in gardens, up in walls, hanging off of trees, hanging out of windows of shops. The towns were covered in green and gold. And it just gave me a sense of a player that, Jesus, like, I'm representing more than my team here and my family. Like, I'm representing every single one of these people. And yeah, I was driving through Killarney and a few other places there last week. And I was just kind of, you wouldn't know there was an All-Ireland on. There was no buzz. There was no flags. And I kind of said, Jesus, our lads are going up to try and stop this juggernaut that is Dublin going for 5 in a row. Like, I was thinking, are people afraid, or did they want to put out their flag, or they just haven't got it yet, or or are we just all too busy, Ger? Because we're living in a modern world and everybody's very busy all the time. But flags out can give a team a sense of pride of place. So it's the players wouldn't even notice it, but I would say subconsciously you're soaking all this in. You're seeing how much it means to everybody, and I did notice it, and I put up a message kind of going, and I was going to be the biggest hypocrite of all time, and I was going to put up a tweet kind of going, lads, get the colours up, the towns are a joke, and then I realised I'd no flag outside my own house. So I went into Hennebury Sports and I bought my flag when it's down the road from the bank I used to work in. I was in the bank the same day, so I popped down, got the flag, took it out home, proud as punch, took the 2 girls out, Lola Rose and Indy, hung up the flag, and then I could slate everybody else for not having their flags up. So but it was just a little reminder for myself that, hey, this is important for these boys. And just on that, this jersey I'm wearing for the HPV vaccine, it's Laura Brennan. She lost her life, and for the last 18 months of her life she campaigned to have this on, and they sent a number of jerseys around to sports people just to highlight the awareness around the vaccine that's effective and that has been proved to be safe. So Laura didn't get the chance to fulfill her message to people, but I think her family have done her very proud by getting all of these sports people around Ireland to wear jerseys like these, and really good jerseys, put the Stacks colours and everything on it, and to help just raise awareness for that vaccine. So I just said I'd give that a special shout out in Shot Clock this morning.
Yeah, no, fair play to you, and wholeheartedly endorse that view as well. One word predictions for the games of the weekend. The ladies semi, Cork against Dublin. One word.
Dublin.
Yeah, okay, I'm going with Dublin as well. Norwich against Chelsea.
Chelsea are going. I was impressed with Chelsea last week. We were a bit unlucky. We ran out of steam a small bit, but I'll go with Chelsea in that, and I'll go for a draw in Arsenal and Spurs before you get to before me. So
grand, okay. I'm going to go for draw in Norwich against Chelsea. I think we're still a bit away from Chelsea's first win. It's Liverpool against Arsenal. I think Liverpool are going to beat Arsenal. You're going to go for draw on that one?
It's Tottenham and Arsenal, isn't it? Or Liverpool Arsenal?
Yeah.
Is it Liverpool Arsenal?
That's what it says here.
All right, Joe killed me with that. Yeah, I'll go with a draw either way.
All right, okay. On that note, Shot Clock is over. Another one in the books. Kieran, enjoy the week. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, bye.
It's Kieran Donaghy, this week's Shot Clocks. Now, Kieran McGean yesterday was discussing the challenges of aligning her physical and mental preparation on last night's show when she popped into studio. Have a look.
I chat to Steve about it now, and it's a joke between us, like, oh, you had your wee meltdown before Berlin, didn't you?
Yeah.
And Steve, I called Steve and I was like, are you coming to the hotel? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I need to chat. And he arrived and we sat in a bar in this hotel in Berlin that looked like very seedy, but it was part of the hotel, so it was very strange.
Hotels often have these
really strange
bars.
Strange looking bar.
Yeah.
And me and Steve, my coach, sitting chatting in this little bay, and he was like, oh, what's wrong? Right. He was like, here, you're in great shape. He had seen all of my training. He was like giving me all the facts. You did this training session, it shows me that you're in even the worst shape you could run a 4:05 or a 4 or whatever. And he's like, Kira, this is the shape you're in. And he was presenting me with all the facts, and the monkey, the chimp as we like to call it,
Steve Peters.
we use that
paradox.
We use that, like that kind of theory a lot. He was like, I was letting that chimp run riot in my head. And Steve literally said to me, it was funny because the British athletics coaches were walking past and he was clearly trying to like, it's great, Kira's fantastic. And I'm in tears and we don't want to show my competitors that I'm that nervous. And he's like, why are you sabotaging all your hard work?
Yeah. And what's the answer?
Here.
Okay.
Having to figure that and cope it. And for me, it was writing down the facts, looking at them and saying, I'm being silly. It's something as simple as that, but you have to put the
CBT thing there.
Had to put the chimp back in its cage and tell it to behave.
That's amazing stuff from Kieran McGean speaking on the show last night. Well worth getting your hands on that. Wherever you get your podcast, you can get it, of course, on offtheball.com. And look what the cat dragged in. What time is it? It's 8:59 of a morning. Good morning to you, Owen Sheehan. How the hell are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well rested, I suspect.
Yeah, extremely well rested.
And a little bit stressed, I hope.
Extremely stressed.
Not at all. You're like, see you strolling in there. 10 to... What time does our show start, Owen?
I clearly have no idea.
7:30 a.m. We're live every morning.
I I didn't know what true fear is until you actually see the sun peeking in through your curtains when the sun is not supposed to peek in through your curtains at the time you get up.
A good night, was it?
No, I wish I got absolutely locked last night.
Half the sports department arrived in late this morning. We were like, was there a Tuesday club?
A bit of a Y2K moment or something for alarms. I don't know, I really wish there was a Tuesday club. I really wish I blew this on getting absolutely locked last night, but unfortunately I didn't.
You were just up late watching.
I've been in here in far worse states at 5:30 or 6 o'clock on any morning, really.
On the rollover mornings.
On any rollover morning. But
how many rollover mornings? Now that we've got you in, you're like got some weird truth serum in your veins. How many rollover mornings have you actually had?
Not that many, to be honest. Just
how many?
I don't count them. You lose count after
Too
a while.
many to count.
Yeah, exactly. No, not that many. This is certainly not one of them. This is just a pure moment of annoyance and frustration that I didn't set enough alarms.
Right, I had assumed that there were no rollover mornings, but actually there's obviously loads.
I slept through an hour of live. One of my alarm is radio that comes off for an hour. I slept through a full hour of that.
Yeah, and obviously Pat outside ringing your doorbell probably, and
yeah. The taxi driver that is.
Take this opportunity to apologise to Pat.
I have already apologised to him via text this morning, and I'm very, very sorry. I'm sorry to myself as well, and I'm sorry to everybody at home watching, and I'm sorry to all my colleagues.
Tommy and Joseph.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tommy and Joseph.
And
I'm sorry,
John
Arthur.
Duggan.
Sorry, John Duggan.
And everybody else.
Sorry, everybody else.
Right. Apology accepted, Owen.
Oh God, not this. They're my favourite phrase in the world. It's such a shame that I missed this morning because
it was a good show, yeah. Lots going on.
Also, the newspapers are in their best fettle in quite some time. Gordon Darcy just all of a sudden splashed in the front of the sports section of the Irish Times with an amazing column. I'm worried, says the headline. I think we all are. We need a sign. So you think to yourself, okay, this is natural cause for concern. We've had a bad 2019. And really, it's kind of hard to do anything other than to just kind of recite what he kind of goes through here. Let's begin with Joey Carberry. Not his injury. Nothing can be done about that. Unfortunate. Potentially derailing in its timing. He won't be the last man to fall. Carberry either returns from ankle surgery or he doesn't. I'm more concerned about his repeated decisions to cross-kick from Ireland's 22 against Italy on August the 10th. The crowd enjoyed the sight of Andrew Conway plucking ball from the sky, but what was the point? It looked unnecessarily risky. If the punt got picked off, Ireland were backpedaling 10 metres from their own try line. Conway won back possession to put Ireland on the front foot. Great. Next, I expected a rapid interchange in midfield to exploit the space on the far side of the pitch. Italy were condensed. Having dragged them one way, Ireland needed to tear them apart in the left wing. That would have lifted my spirits, shown a new departure from the insipid attacking approach we witnessed for most of the Six Nations. Instead, all we learned from the first warm-up match was how instrumental Carberry is to Ireland in broken play. I'm worried. I think we all are. Joey Carberry's form, not a high point for Gordon Darcy at the moment.
I don't understand the point he's making.
In terms of the...
Don't be doing the kicks, or when he did the kick, we did nothing with it.
Yes, and it's...
What's his point? It seems a bit lost.
He gets to a point later on about the lack of invention in midfield, and I don't think that this is, to be honest with you, an attack on Carberry. I think Carberry's just a guy who's in the 10 shirt for our first warm-up game, and it is to do with the system. Like he talks about 2019 Ireland hitting slower rucks for the sake of rucks. That's his major concern. He says that when Ireland carry ball at almost any stage this year near the opposition line, it's static and easy to defend. Ireland's carriers are only moving after getting the ball, while South Africans are moving before their scrum half passes. He does say this is fixable. And he doesn't say he's thinking about the Springboks anymore, even though he mentions them. I'm not thinking about that quarter-final anymore. Right now, the path to the knockout stages is blocked by far too many obstacles, self-made obstacles. He says, so don't worry, it's nowhere near 2007 level, that it's not going to be in that territory. But he does say that our starting 15 is simply not as good as the team that Paul O'Connell led into battle 4 years ago. He does, however, say that Joe Schmidt has a better squad at his disposal.
Yeah.
He makes the point that teams win games, and it's an individual invention like Brian Habana or Dan Carter that win World Cups, that the squad will help you survive in a World Cup, but actually going on to win the thing, you need something extremely special in your starting 15.
There wasn't much invention about that England team in 2003. There was obviously they were all there.
This is a superstar in the rank. He says this team will have a superstar in the ranks. I don't want to misquote him by saying invention. Okay. So could you say, I suppose, Martin Johnson, Johnny Wilkinson?
Yeah, absolutely. Superstars of the game. And Richard Hill and a bunch of other players there.
But when he says Habana or Dan Carter, I'm kind of looking at the thing that they could do in the backs. which was, oh my God,
yeah, we
unlocked the defence.
We need Gary Ringrose to emerge as a global superstar in this World Cup. That's what has to happen. If it's going to happen, if Ireland are going to have one of those unicorn World Cups, then somebody or a couple of players have to be, okay, well actually I am the best player in the world in my position.
It's funny you said that. He says, in Gary Ringrose we all must trust. And I think that's the sentiment by a lot of people who've been watching a lot of Ireland over the last couple of years. He has arrived at a point now where he is the beating heart almost of Ireland. Like, he kind of runs his rule through who the contenders are, and he thinks England are genuine contenders. Like, from what we experienced last February, that proves that. He says they're right up there with the Boks and the All Blacks. So Gordon Darcy thinks it's South Africa, he thinks it's New Zealand, he thinks it's England. They're the three big hitters. He says Wales are in decent shape. Michael Check has turned Australia into a gang well capable, and then Ireland, he feels, are sitting below this list of contenders, just above the unpredictable French and Pumas. We know how Ireland will play under Schmidt. My major concern is so does every defensive coach heading to the land of the rising sun.
All right, Craig Ray is with us this morning, a rugby writer and broadcaster from South Africa, to talk to us about how things are going with the Springboks, a potential quarter-final opponent for Ireland if we make it that far. Craig, we're not feeling very confident, but I guess you guys are feeling pretty confident because the Rugby Championship showcased all the best of Rassie Rasmus's team and squad.
Yeah, it did. We are pretty confident in South Africa, but I guess the Springboks have a very good sort of World Cup track record, even in sort of mediocre years. You think of 2015, they went in on the back of 3 defeats in the Rugby Championship, and there was still optimism, and notwithstanding the Japan result, they made it through to the semi-finals anyway. So yeah, there's high optimism, but I must say it's certainly a lot better than it was a year ago, because the thought of facing Ireland in the quarter-final was really worrying for the Springboks. Right now, there's still a lot of concern that playing someone like Ireland's a tough match, but there's a lot more confidence that the Boks could win it compared to 12 months ago.
Given the Rassie Erasmus factor, not only is form a big plus point for you, but it's the knowledge that he has that surely gives huge confidence in terms of this potential fixture against Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his background with Munster will certainly come into play there. But I think the Springboks are really targeting that opening game against the All Blacks. So, they want to avoid Ireland. They would rather play Scotland or Japan in a quarter-final than Ireland. I mean, that just goes without saying in terms of world rankings and in terms of recent success. I mean, Ireland are a dangerous opponent. But, if you get to the quarter-finals of a World Cup, you're going to have 3 pretty tough matches anyway to go on to win the tournament.
What has Rassie done, apart from bringing back all the players who were previously unavailable for selection for whatever reason, to suddenly turn South Africa back into a team that everybody, and I'm serious about this, that everybody else in the world is terrified of at the moment?
Well, I think a couple of things. Getting those overseas players back certainly helped with depth. And what he's done in a very short space of time has been able to build depth in each position. There's at least 2 players now that are capable of stepping in and producing quality similar to that of the first choice guy, if you like. And that's come through a very clear selection policy, a very clear idea of what he wants from specific players in specific positions. The other thing that he's done really well is had clarity on a game plan. For too long, the Springboks have been very unclear about what they're trying to achieve. Erasmus hasn't tried to do anything too fancy. He's trying to shore up the defence. They're working on this sort of hard outside-in defence. And that it's taken about a year to bed down with Jacques Nienaber. Initially, Nienaber tried this sort of drift defence, and then he came to the conclusion that sort of oscillating between 2 defensive systems wasn't going to work in the time frame they had. So he's gone for all out for an outside-in defence that is high risk, as we've seen the Springboks get exposed occasionally out wide when the wings get it wrong. But they've got good scramble as well. So they've built their game plan around that kind of defence. And then from an attacking point of view, they've really worked on the kicking game, tactical kicking game, getting the halfbacks to kick tactically, getting the wings to chase accurately, and also to defend the kicking game, which has been a factor where New Zealand certainly exploited the Springboks for quite a few years under the high ball. So Erasmus is just, and then the third thing is a pack, a tight 5 that probably is second to none in the world right now. We saw the scrum dominate in the Rugby Championship, and he's always had powerful scrums wherever he's been, and from that base he's been able to add some layers. So I think in a short space of time he's managed to cover a few of those bases.
Could you talk to us a little bit about that kicking game, Craig? Because it's obviously something that Ireland has implemented quite successfully at times under Joe Schmidt, but it's under the microscope in Ireland at the moment whether or not we should proceed with, especially the box kicking game from Ireland's scrum halves.
Well, look, watching Ireland for the last few years, Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton have been peerless in that part of the game, and in Ireland's success in the last few years has been built around that. The British and Irish Lions' success in New Zealand was built around that, and the Springboks' success in New Zealand has been built around that. I'd be surprised if Ireland veered from that so close to the World Cup. It's, World Cup games, especially the knockout games, are going to be cutthroat. They're going to come down to one or two mistakes, winning penalties in crucial areas of the field, and the kicking game gives you the best way to make yards quickly and put pressure on the opposition, turn defence into pressure quite quickly. So I'll be very surprised if Ireland veer from that in the big games. Obviously, in South Africa's case against a Namibia or a Canada, there's a lot of scope to try a few other things in those games. But in the crunch games, it's going to be playing the percentages and cutting back on errors.
In terms of an attacking philosophy, you kind of talked about the defensive philosophy. How do South Africa like to play the game? Is it exclusively based around the kicking game at the minute, or are they trying to get their centres involved in the game? Are they trying to run over teams, run around teams?
Yeah, they're certainly scoring tries, and it comes from the kicking game gives them field position. And once they're in the correct areas of the field, all three phases, they've got the big strike runners running off one-off runners. You've got the likes of Malcolm Marx taking it into contact with one of the big news forwards. Peter Steph-Detroit being a strong carrier, Graham Commuter. And they set up a few rucks. Even Damien Derninde at centre, he's been under criticism in South Africa, but he hasn't really done anything other than under instruction, which is run it hard and straight and set up pods. And then they got the speed out wide. They've got the tactical nous to manipulate defence. The try they scored to draw in Wellington this year came from a line out. They worked it left and right, and they went through about 11 phases before they worked Billy LaRue into some space down the blind side, which created the overlap with Chef and Colby. So they're very clever in how they do it, but they're very measured as well. They're certainly not a well-oiled enough machine yet to play like the All Blacks that we've become accustomed to in terms of program play.
Yeah, I've got to say, Craig, the way you're talking about them, we could have subbed in South Africa for Ireland 18 months ago when Ireland were at their best, getting to that point where we were capable of beating South Africa, beating Australia, beating New Zealand. Our form has come off horribly since then, so there's like real doubt and fear amongst the Irish commentariat in rugby land that we're actually going out there and who knows what's going to happen. Everything is on the table, including a defeat against Scotland or Japan, or, in our case, that might happen in both games. Who knows? And at the same time, we also could turn it around and kind of feel confident. So have you any sense of where the rest of the world are at versus what tier South Africa are in? Because we certainly would have South Africa and the All Blacks in the same tier at the moment.
Look, I mean, you guys have obviously been a little too pessimistic, I think. I think Joe Schmidt's a very smart coach, and I don't think, if Johnny Sexton and Conor Murray are fit, Ireland are going to be a tough side to beat, and I would put them right up there with New Zealand. I still think New Zealand going to this tournament as favourites. South Africa in that sort of second run with Ireland, England and Wales, I think. And then Australia, I can't see Australia winning a World Cup. They might have one really good knockout game in them, but I don't think they can put three performances together. And that's another thing that the Springboks managed in the Rugby Championship, was one of the question marks. Can they put three performances together in 3 consecutive weekends, which is what you're going to need to do at the World Cup? And they tick that box as well. So I think, they go into the World Cup in great shape, but you're only as good as your last game. And, if it comes unstuck against the All Blacks in Yokohama, the old doubts will creep in. So that is a big game. Not so much in the sense that the Springboks have to win it, but they have to perform really well in that one to keep the confidence and the momentum going. Good
stuff, Craig. Thanks for joining us this morning. Hopefully we'll talk to you before the quarterfinals. Probably before that, indeed. Thanks a million. It's Craig Ray joining us on a slightly dodgy Skype line from South Africa this morning. It is 14 minutes past 9 exactly this morning. You're listening to OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio on the Go Loud app, or else you're watching us on youtube.com or indeed on offtheball.com. However you're consuming us this morning, you're very welcome. A very busy show for you, and we've got some more good stuff coming, including Phil who's going to join us right after this.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
300 clubs getting vital cash funding. Over 450 schools and juvenile teams supported nationwide. More than 11,000 jerseys, balls and equipment donated. And record-breaking crowds at the last 3 TG Cahir All-Ireland finals. Those are serious numbers. That is serious support. Lidl, proudly supporting ladies Gaelic football.
OTB AM.
All right, you're very welcome along. If you've just joined us, Phil has also joined us. Phil, how are you?
Good, yeah.
I stole your Tuesday Club line, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
This is a good line.
Yeah, to be honest, Owen was so late, I was genuinely worried that you kind of have to keep the gags to a minimum.
Something might have happened.
Genuinely something happened to him.
But nothing happened to him, he just let it out.
So, like, he just
couldn't work his alarm properly.
How many alarms do you set in the morning?
What's with the eyebrow raise? And literally, it's embarrassing enough not being able to work an alarm properly. I think that's where. Is there like what's your suspicion?
Well, there's no suspicion. It's like the bit where your alarm goes off, you're supposed to get up. That's how it works properly.
Yeah, I've done it for 18 months straight now, and I was actually very, very proud of that record. Extremely proud of that record, and that is the thing. Is my pride has been injured quite a bit.
It's the pressure, the 5 in a row. It's getting to him.
Yeah,
Donaghy calling for flags.
Yeah, this is what they're doing. But yeah,
I was definitely having some really vivid dreams as well at about 7:30 this morning. Maybe it was about 5 in a row.
Can you tell anything?
I've instantaneously forgotten. It must have been 5 in a row related. The pressure. Just
everything is now from this point forward, right?
Yeah.
The hurling is essentially parked. Richie Hogan came out last night, put a nice bow on it. Micheál Donoghue, that story rumble on, but it's like just a kind of almost sotto voce. But the real music now, there's nothing but the blare of the 5 in a row.
Yeah, and I see Jim Gavin took Dublin down to the Trump Links down in Doonbeg last week just to get away from that. But actually, he's got family in Clare, so I think that's probably kind of a usual sort of pilgrimage for them. But I don't know. If I was a manager of a team in Dublin at the moment, I'm kind of removing them from the city as much as possible. Although it's been something that's been raised quite a bit on this show over the last couple of weeks, is that how much does the noise of Dublin actually get to you if you're a player here? Because it's not exactly a city that's hopping in every single corner with the talk of GAA.
Think about it though. If you are
one of them, okay.
You're obviously from that community, and so although I mean, if you're not in school, if you're a teacher, you're not actually walking in to see your colleagues. You're not walking in to see the kids going, "Oh, how was training last night?" So you're kind of
Just put on headphones, block it all out.
Oh, headphones. Yeah. That was a very bad Chris Waddle impression. This September, the Off-the-Ball Roadshow in association with Cadbury are bringing Premier League legends Roy Keane and Gary Neville together to the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. The former Man United players will join us for a special off-air event on the 4th of September. Tickets went on sale last Friday at 10 o'clock and were sold out in a matter of a few hours later on Friday afternoon. All the proceeds are going to Aware, providing support and information for people who experience depression. We will be giving away tickets on this show next week, but you've got to tune in every day for your chance to win the last few precious tickets.
Okay, we'll start with Micheál Donoghue, 4 years in charge, but he has decided to step down as manager of the Galway Senior Hurlers. The Clarenbridge clubman guided the tribesmen to the All-Ireland title in 2017 when they beat Waterford in the final to lift the Liam McCarthy Cup for the first time in 29 years. And they were back in the final 12 months later, but they were beaten by Limerick in the 2018 decider. And 2019, I suppose, wasn't the year they were hoping for. Obviously, there was a few factors and injuries to Joe Canning didn't help, but their final round loss to Dublin in June ended their Leinster Championship campaign. Remember, Donoghue had previously won 2 Leinster titles with Galway. He said it was the opportunity of a lifetime, both an honour and a privilege to manage his county. He also thanked his backroom team and the support staff and said Galway hurling will continue to play a huge part in his heart and life, and he wished Galway every success in the future. So already there's talk of who is in line to replace him. The current under-20 manager, Jeff Linsky, Matty Kenny, the Dublin manager who masterminded that victory at Parnell Park in June, and minor manager Brian Hanley, the minors just coming off the back of winning 3 All-Ireland titles in a row. So that is something to look out for in the next few weeks. Kenny's Richie Hogan was on Off the Ball last night. an interview that's getting plenty of traction, and he said he believes he shouldn't have received a red card for his challenge on Cathal Barrett during Sunday's All-Ireland final defeat to Tipperary at Croke Park. Former Hurler of the Year said he was amazed when referee James Owens sent him off in the first half, and obviously Hogan, a former Hurler of the Year, is coming to the end of his inter-county career, but he said he has no intention of calling it a day with the Cats now.
No, I don't want to finish like that. And, you know, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe that decision that I was probably would have had to make over the winter has probably been made already for me. So, yeah. So I think, to be honest with you, I owe it to myself to do whatever I can to play again, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Ross Byrne is in line to get a start at number 10 when Ireland play England at Twickenham on Saturday in their second World Cup warm-up game. Rory Best, Conor Murray, Peter O'Mahony, CJ Standard, Tadhg Furlong and Rob Kearney all set to make their first appearances of the season as well. Obviously Joey Carberry is injured, so Jack Harty's also set to get game time as the management decide who joins Johnny Sexton on the plane to Japan.
I think the most interesting thing that's coming from the papers today, the Irish Times had the time against Carberry as Ireland take a look at Plan B, and somebody else had it that Carty was going to be getting looked at it this weekend. I think there's a serious concern about whether or not Carberry's injury is going to actually rule him out from being on the plane at all, which is a twist in what we've heard certainly in the last few days. It was like, look,
4 to 6 weeks.
It'll be fine. Yeah. I don't know if they've told us the truth about the full nature of the injury. I suspect that the injury might be worse than they're letting on. So they're like hoping against hope that whatever it is heals quicker. And I suspect that they're now suddenly scrambling a little bit, and maybe both Byrne and Carty go. Is that possible?
Well, once you hear the word surgery, like, it's always possible, isn't it, that a player doesn't go. Like, I mean, it's included there in the first couple of lines of Gordon Darcy's piece, which I hadn't actually seen, or like the injury to that. And like, if you're looking at Byrne and Carty, and like we spoke to Ronan O'Gara about that over the past couple of days, like he's kind of nitpicking if you had to pick one or two, one over the other. Does that mean that they're both at a high enough quality to replace Johnny Sexton in the heat of a quarter-final? I'm not sure, but the only way you can get them that experience is playing them this weekend and playing them the week after against Wales and the week after again against Wales, and just hoping that is enough, because really at the moment Ross Byrne and Jack Carty are not experienced enough to start a World Cup quarter-final.
Who could have predicted that we would be in this scenario?
I mean, we've had 4 years to plan this.
Who could have predicted? Like, it's not like we were calling 2 years ago, give Johnny Sexton a year off and give everybody else some game time and see what you've got. Give them all game time in big games. Give Johnny Sexton a year off and see what happens. But we didn't do that. No.
We should win the Six Nations.
No, we absolutely had
we got our first tour win in Australia, so
happy days. It's going to be great to look back on that in years to come.
Yeah, well, the squad is currently out in Portugal at warm weather training, and said that game is on Saturday. Aston Villa youth coach Kevin MacDonald has left the club with immediate effect, and this is following an investigation into allegations of bullying made by a number of former players. Villa have apologised to the former players affected by the behaviour of MacDonald, who was a youth coach and reserve coach in 2 spells over a 25-year period from the mid-90s. So Villa said the conduct would not be tolerated by the club. The investigation took place after The Guardian published an interview with former Aston Villa and Ireland midfielder Gareth Farrelly back in December. He was at Villa from 92 to 97, and he called MacDonald's coaching regime a culture of verbal and physical bullying, and he said that he had sank to extremely dark places after his spell with Aston Villa as well. He's been quite honest about it, and I know he hasn't talked about it because of the investigation, so I'd imagine we're going to hear more from Gareth Farrelly over the next few weeks.
Yeah, this is grim. Of course, Kevin MacDonald was part of Steve Staunton's coaching ticket when he was the manager for the Republic of Ireland. So
often a caretaker manager for Villa as well, with all their changes as well.
Yeah, and like, by all accounts, the Villa youth system in terms of scouting talent was absolutely sensational, and so they had loads of great young players come through. And how many careers were blighted because this guy was the personality and person and human being that he was? That's just grim.
Yeah, absolutely. Sheffield Wednesday are top of the championship following a 1-0 win over Luton last night. There were also wins for Middlesbrough, Birmingham, Bristol City and Blackburn. Derek Williams scored the winner for Blackburn. 3 of their back 4 Irish internationals. The reason Gabriel Jesus had a goal ruled out against Tottenham at the weekend, it wasn't down to VAR. I know we were watching it and we thought this is the new handball rule, but it was the EU's fault.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah. According to Ian Holloway, the former Blackpool and QPR boss was on the debate on Sky Sports last night and gave this bizarre opinion.
So I don't think that's our boys making up that new change of law. I think that's people telling us what we should do with our game. Yeah. Now they should stop doing that. I hope we get out of Brexit, because that's what we've all voted for, and sort that out, because you cannot have someone telling us how to do our own game.
What a clown. What a clown. Do you know, does he even know how football works? The rules body is literally the Football Association of Scotland, Wales, England and Northern Ireland that make changes to rules.
So the International FA Board, the IFAB, there's 8 members, and 4 of them are the countries you named, so England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales. So half of that body is made up of those FAs, and David Ellery, the former referee, by the way, is a technical director.
Right. I mean, they probably do need Brexit to, let them stew in their own filth for a couple of years and see exactly how the world gives a shit, because they won't. Owen, you've been reading some Alan Brogan there?
Yeah, papers are on fire this morning. All forgiven if Kerry Cubs can stop the Dubs. So a poor decade of returns for Kingdom faithful will be tolerated if drive is halted. It's Alan Brogan writing in the Herald this morning.
He's right though, isn't he? Nothing matters now in Kerry football history but this one game and stopping the first ever 5 in a row in GAA. Right? Nothing matters, Owen.
It feels like that at the moment. He says that in 2011, Kerry represented nothing more or less to us than the team we had to beat to win Sam Maguire. So they weren't getting hung up about Kerry, they were just getting hung up about the fact that they hadn't won in All-Ireland since 1995. He does say, I wonder if that's the same for these Kerry players now. So I wonder if he's suggesting that they're actually very obsessed with the idea of Dublin. I think he probably is suggesting that, and I think he could be right. He says they're either going to attain the unwanted tag of leading members of the Kerry team that allowed Dublin to do 5 in a row, or they'll be remembered forever as heroes for stopping it. By their own standards, it's been a terrible decade for Kerry. They've only won 1 All-Ireland and they've lost 4 championship matches with Dublin, including 2 finals. But if they were to finish it off by stopping the team who are being spoken about as perhaps the greatest of all time from making that claim indisputable, all will be forgiven. And it's hard to imagine, for instance, that the likes of David Moran and Tommy Walsh, players with parental links to the glory years of the 70s, aren't acutely aware of it. So Alan Brogan's getting All-Ireland final week underway a few days early, but I think he's actually onto something here, really. I think they have to be acutely aware of it. I think history matters a hell of a lot when it comes to...
It's your only hope, is that the history somehow chokes Dublin.
Well, yeah, and it is, like, with the ridiculous gulf in class between the two teams, I guess you're probably right. Very interesting.
50-50, toss of a ball. Sure, form goes out the window in a Dublin-Kerry game, right?
I'm not sure if I've actually seen this one before. On the same page, Conor McKeown's been speaking to James McCarthy talking about A versus B games in the Dublin camp.
Oh, yeah.
And he says that they had a game before the 2017 All-Ireland final, GPS Gate, and he says spiky was the best adjective James McCarthy would summon later to describe the affair. Later in the game, with Dean Rock standing over a free, this is in the challenge game, Dean Rock standing over a free to effectively secure a draw, some of the Bs attempted to put him off his kick. Dennis Bastick, who parted Darragh McCauley in midfield, stood in front of Rock with his arms raised, shouting insults and calling him Barney. He missed.
So that's what Lee Keegan had to do.
Lee Keegan could do nothing with a GPS after that.
Oh, no, that's a bit too much information. What if the Kerry full backline are reading that this week?
Well, they should be. I mean, call him Barney and he will miss. That's it's remarkable. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for some of those A versus B games. I talked about 2016 as well, when Costello effectively seals the All-Ireland. He really made his mark in an A versus B game, but it seemed there was only one played between the semi-final and the final, so they're not that regular that when you get that chance.
Yeah, well, obviously there's too much blood and thunder in them.
Yeah.
Phil, you got 2 last stories for us?
Oh yeah, the Irish women's hockey team have to beat Germany to reach the last 4 of the European Championships, and that is in Antwerp today. Gets underway at 11:15 this morning. And Ireland's dressage team qualified for the Tokyo Olympics yesterday. They'll be on the plane to Japan. They finished 7th at the European Championships in Rotterdam. First time that there will be a dressage team, an Irish dressage team at the Olympics.
That's great. We're all going to be dressage aficionados come this time next year. It's next year, isn't it? August next year.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll learn a few of the terms. Yeah.
The horse danced nicely. That's it.
Just use all horse racing terminology. The horse stayed the trip. That's applicable to every single horse-based sport in the world.
Travelled well.
Travelled well. ground suited him.
Yeah. All right, that is your lot from OTB this morning. We're back tomorrow morning. Some of us, we hope, both of us perhaps, at 7:30. How you feeling, Owen? That was a good half hour of work there you did.
Say, for sure, flew by.
Down, you're fresh for the whole day. Owen will certainly be back here tomorrow morning at 7:30. The Off the Ball show on News Talk is back this evening from 7 o'clock. OTB Sports Radio is live all day on the Go Loud app, or it's also on your Alexa. Just tell your Alexa to play OTB Sports Radio and or your Google Home indeed, and you should be able to get good quality sports content in your earballs all afternoon. See you tomorrow at 7:30. Good luck.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports